यो व्हाट इज अप माय फ्रेंड्स, क्या हाल है। स्वागत है आपका एक और नए एपिसोड दोस्तकास्ट के। मेरा नाम विनम्र केसाना है। आप अगर आप इस चैनल पे पहली बार आए हैं, सब्सक्राइब बटन दबाइए बिकॉज आज के हमारे गेस्ट का नाम है कबीर मेहता। अगर आपने इससे पहले इनकी पिक्चरें नहीं देखी, पॉडकास्ट बंद करो, मूवी डाउनलोड करो, जाके पिक्चरें देखो। there's two pictures available there. One is साधु in Bombay, the other is Buddha.Mov, और एक और पिक्चर है that you can find in the credits. मैंने इस लेवल की रियलिस्टिक और फिक्शन के बीच में जो वो एक लाइन होती है ना, ऐसी पिक्चरें कभी नहीं देखी अपनी जिंदगी के अंदर। इनफैक्ट साधु इन बॉम्बे इज गोना मेक शिवर्स ऑन डाउन योर स्पाइन। और कबीर ने रिसेंटली ही वाज द सीरीज डायरेक्टर फॉर क्लास, द फेमस नेटफ्लिक्स शो। ऑलरेडी उसकी एक स्टार कास्ट को हम यहाँ पे ला चुके हैं पॉडकास्ट पे। दिस इज अ कॉन्वर्सेशन अबाउट क्रेजी स्ट्रिप क्लब्स इन बैंकॉक, अबाउट फिल्म फिलोसफी, about gonzo filmmaking, about giving a finger to the industry, and about being authentic to your own vision of what it means to be someone who uses the camera to capture time. The amazing freewheeling episode with Kabir Mehta of all of these films begins in 3, 2, 1. पता है कहानी क्या थी? द स्टोरी दैट आई वाज सेविंग टिल नाउ।
टेल मी।
बेसिकली क्या हुआ कि मेरा बेस्ट फ्रेंड स्लैश मैनेजर अमन गर्ग, तो वो ऐसे एकदम यूट्यूब की दुनिया का है। तो एक दिन मैंने बोला चलो हम मूवी देखते हैं। तो क्या है ये आर्ट हाउस टाइप की चीज़ कर रहा है, तो मूवी दिखा रहा है। सो शॉर्ट अटेंशन स्पैन, राइट। सो सैट थ्रू द एंटायर सीक्वेंस ऑफ साधु इन बॉम्बे एंड लाइक लास्ट में वही माइंड ब्लोन रिएक्शन कि भाई ये क्या हो गया, कैसे है। एंड देन वी एंडेड अप वाचिंग अ बंच ऑफ मूवीज ऑन मूवी दैट नाइट बिकॉज ऑफ द फिल्म। क्योंकि उनको प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि यार आई डोंट वांट टू वॉच समथिंग लाइक जैसे कोई ऑस्ट्रियन पिक्चर है, मुझे सर पैर पता नहीं है, बट एवरी वन अंडरस्टैंड सम डिग्री ऑफ अर्बन ग्रिट। ठीक है, कभी ना कभी या तो वाइट टाइगर देखी है, पढ़ी है, एंड एवरी वन लव्स अ गुड ड्राइवर स्टोरी, यू नो। एंड मतलब वो हर इंसान चाहता है कि मैं ब्लू कॉलर इंडिया से थोड़ा नज़दीक आऊँ। एंड आई थिंक दैट फिल्म, आई मीन जस्ट विद द जैसे वो फिल्म के अंदर फ्रेम आता है कि ये एडिटिंग सीक्वेंस है, इसको शुड आई नॉट गिव द हाँ ठीक है। तो आई ट्रूली इन्जॉयड साधु इन बॉम्बे, ठीक है। एंड देन व्हेन आई वाज रीडिंग द डिस्क्रिप्शन इट सेज, यू नो, कबीर मेहता ऑलवेज ब्लेंड्स रियलिटी एंड फिक्शन दोबारा से ऐसे। जस्ट वंडरिंग ऑफ द गेट गो, why did you decide to make something like that? और ये style, is this something that you've picked up on your own, या ये कहाँ से इजाद हुआ?
Okay, lot of questions in there.
Sorry, yaar.
Enough to unpack. But yeah, I think like totally in sync with what you're saying is that I think everyone likes a story about that world and the perspective. It's kind of like a outsider's perspective on the world we're kind of from, no? And I think what happens is it's like you work in such close proximity with, let's say, your chauffeur or driver, and they have such a kind of insight into your life, but without ever kind of developing a relationship with you. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. It's very transactional.
It's very transactional.
आओ जाओ, इससे बातचीत भी, it's very like,
But it's also very intimate because they're kind of like privy to every secret that you have. So I think that, like, in a very like fragmented sense, this was always playing on my mind as a younger person, you know, like through my teens and as my 20s. And then the character of Sadhu kind of like is from different people, man. Like this idea here, I actually ended up like in Varanasi. You know, in 2013, what I did was I traveled around India quite a bit on my own, just trains, buses, here and there, just all over, like pretty much the circumference of India.
so was this like a gap year thing? Were you trying to discover?
Gap year, my life was just filled with gap years. I took a gap year after school. So I took a gap year after school. Then I realized I want to do film, you know. And I was always like pretty much a cinephile even while being in school. I went to boarding school, no. So like kids in boarding school can relate to this, but they would pretty much pack lots of tuck and food and all.
Yeah, tuck is a very boarding school term, no? हम लोग normal day boarders use junk food.
Junk food.
You do tuck.
Yeah, but we were not only junk food, anything was tuck. So it was like, you know, because it's so primal growing up in boarding school, you're just like, I just want food all the time, you know. Anyway, but I would have packed DVDs, yeah. I used to go to Palika, bust all my pocket money, not even pick the DVDs. I'm like, just whatever you have, the one. Then they started doing the 7-in-1s, yeah. So I'm like, give me as many 7-in-1s as you can, which means
they
7 films. They did that. It's really shit quality. But they were doing 7-in-1s, yeah. So I was like, just give me all the 7-in-1s you can. Just they would make a whole carton, yeah. And I knew this guy. every vacation. Go to school, packed one suitcase, small, suitcase or sometimes a bag packed with DVDs. So in that sense, I mean, I was just watching everything, left, right, and center. It didn't matter. So I guess that obsession with cinema and film started happening then. And then by the time I got out, I was like, maybe I want to study film and all. It seemed like a really far-fetched idea for like...
Did you study film eventually?
No, I didn't. My father felt it was quite far-fetched to pay for something as ridiculous as film.
क्या fluff degree कर रहे हो?
Exactly, like... so I took a gap year, like whatever. Ended up in DU at Venki. But never really attended college. It was...
Was the allure of drama and theatre societies like not tempting to you?
No man, like not at all actually.
So were you in like ऐसा single screen cinemas के अंदर जहाँ नीचे वो खटमल और मच्छर होते हैं ऐसे you like seeing films on the big screen as well in this time?
Yeah, sometimes I would go to. I mean, the thing is, I never enjoyed those kinds of films. So the allure of cinema wasn't Bollywood in that sense. What happened was because I was so obsessed with cinema, within that gap year and then starting college in Venki and all, I started getting a lot into world cinema.
Boarding cinema?
World cinema.
Sorry,
So, and that kind of opened up like a whole new paradigm for me as opposed to viewing cinema. That now, I was like, hey, this is not something that's coming out of a factory. There's like a real author behind these films. So that seemed very appealing to me. That there can be an authorship behind film. And I mean, more than anything else, also, I wasn't like one of those kids who was like really into, let's say, drama society or debates. I mean, I was always invited to be on debates, but I was more interested in just doing delinquent shit, pretty much.
Todna
forna, bus parties with friends and hanging out and bunking class. I mean, that's kind of like where I came from school. And then when I went into, and because I went to boarding school, I was quite happy to be in Delhi also. Just kind of live that Delhi life finally,
So what year is this around the time when you were?
This should be around post 2008, between 2008 and 2012.
क्या party चल रही थी उस time पे दिल्ली में?
It was like TLR was there in Hoskas Village. Hoskas Village hadn't like blown up that time.
Now it's blown out.
Then it's blown out. Yeah, there was that F bar or whatever.
Oh,
FTV bar or something.
I remember that was the time when like Fashion and Zoom TV had kind of collaborated to make something happen, right?
There was a few spots. There was quite a lot of clubs actually, I think, back then. Or maybe they still are, I'm not aware of them.
Were you a Royal Mirage guy? Did that open at that time?
I don't know, maybe not.
मतलब जो CP वाला circle है वहाँ clubs खुल गए थे? Or were you like in South Delhi at that time?
Pretty much South Delhi. CP was like, there was one in that hotel there. Aqua or something it was called. Agni, I think. Agni was it or Aqua? I don't remember.
I was just a kid at that time.
Yeah, doesn't matter. But it was like just having fun pretty much. Yeah, like I always kind of weirdly, I would trump a sort of cultural education for just having fun with friends.
ऐसे ही सीखता है आदमी यार. I remember like in my 11th and 12th grade, I completely stopped studying and was just doing delinquent shit like buying paraphernalia from underpasses and like writing strange blogs, investing in like वो अंजुना की जो घटिया flea pants होती हैं कि हम hippie हैं यहाँ के, and just completely wasting time. And as a consequence, I discovered like rock and roll like I never did. बट अगर मैं वही सब करता कि 11वीं 12वीं है चलो ब्रो कॉन्ट्री करके ये सब कर लेते हैं, आई थिंक माई लाइफ वुड बी डिफरेंट. इट्स दोज wasted years where you kind of develop taste, no?
Exactly. So kind of like tying that back into film. So what happened was, also I was quite a bit of a like technology geek. Yeah, I was really fascinated with buttons and cameras in that sense. And so suddenly and I think what happened around that time was this DSLR thing started coming around. Like you can shoot on these smaller cameras.
Yeah.
So and the thing is the cameras kind of came very naturally to me. It was like I can operate this very easily. It's like I'm kind of used to it somehow because I've always been kind of tech savvy. So that was one part of it. And the second thing was I was watching all these like really depraved films,
Like what?
Like all this Gaspar Noé stuff, which was like Enter the Void, all of his earlier stuff, I Stand Alone, Karan.
Enter the Void is the DMT...
the DMT trip, pretty much.
What a fucking weird movie that is, bro.
What a wild movie, I thought. I was like, hey, this can be a movie. Because at the time, it felt like either you have to be a Bollywood guy in India, or you have to be like this guy making social realism, wearing a jhola, and like that's what you make. And this life that I was coming from, this had no representation in cinema only.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I don't know, like, but I'm seeing this stuff internationally. This can be a film. Like, you can make stuff on this. You can find cinema within the underbelly of
Right.
cities in a way, right? So anyway, I finished this degree at Venki in economics, by the way.
if anyone's interested in that.
And then I said, okay, man, you know what I'll do? I'll just like travel around India for a bit. A little bit of money on me, I think.
तो रेलगाड़ी मालगाड़ी टाइप का सीन था या फिर लाइक एट दिस पॉइंट जस्ट एमलेस ट्रैवल बैकपैकिंग कोई एजेंडा?
No agenda. It was just it was a bit of done on a bit of a whim, yeah, actually.
Alone by yourself?
Just by myself. I was like, okay, hey man, I got some money. I think I had like 70 grand or something on 67 grand, just kind of saved up during college and all. I was like, okay, this is it. We have a few weeks. Maybe like 7-8 weeks.
तो कहाँ गए? Where did you end up?
Let's see. I started Delhi, Varanasi, Darjeeling, then into Guwahati, Shillong, Cherrapunji. I think I also went back around to Calcutta, Bhubaneswar, Chennai, Pondicherry, Kanyakumari, Cochin.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and then I was like, then I kind of gave like Maharashtra a bit of a miss and Goa because I'd kind of been there and done that. Went into Gujarat, to Ahmedabad, and then from there into Rajasthan. So
Bro, ये कितने महीनों की ट्रिप है?
ज़्यादा नहीं है. But there was no plan, right? So it was like, let's say मैं Ahmedabad पहुंचा, so it was like, hey, this is not really something I want to be at. So spent one night, moved on. Or like sometimes I ended up Calcutta.
This wet scene is not for me.
Yeah, and also dry state, and I wasn't living in a 5-star hotel. It was like literally like really cheap hotels everywhere. Yeah, so which was quite fun. I don't think those kind of hotels even exist anymore, where you can like go to a city, find a really clean hotel for almost no money.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then Udaipur, Jaisalmer, Jodhpur, and then pretty much Jodhpur to Gurgaon was a bus back. So it was like a whole, like the circumference of Delhi, India covered, yeah.
मतलब मैं तो थोड़ा solo travel से fascinated हूँ. बीच में like you must have had days like what the fuck am I doing? Like did that dawn at all?
I think I was just romanticizing the idea of myself traveling alone within India so much it never struck me.
Your eat, pray, love happened way before, na?
Yeah, I guess in a way.
So still curious. उस टाइम पे were you जैसे random stranger से हाय बोला कि यार इस जैसे क्या करते हैं? There's this like kind of taxi driver journalism that people do, right? कि जाके यार यहाँ पे सरकार कौन सी है? What is the best place to go here? Like did you interact with people in these cities at all to mine new information?
Not with a particular agenda. So in a weird way, when I was in Banaras, I ended up like hanging out with an aghori for 2-3 days. Which is like a bit unheard of. Like this guy just became like friends with me, and he was really unabashed. Like I mean,
नंगा घूमता था?
वो नंगा घूमता नहीं था, but he had no like no whims in kind of showing his dick whenever needed. So I'm not needed in the sense, but by needed I mean whenever the need to perform basically for me. And show me pictures, and I would get him some tea. He was very fascinated. Like this young guy wants to hang out with me. Obviously, I looked a bit more westernized, but I could speak in Hindi and all. So he was like, okay, this is like a bit weird, and he's not like intimidated by me. And I wasn't that guy like, oh, I'm a filmmaker, I'm carrying a camera or something. There's none of that. It was just like me. I had a little GoPro, just doing random stuff on that. But by then, I had kind of reached this point where like I don't want to like be that guy carrying a camera with me and then documenting stuff all the time because I'd done it a lot.
India, guys. This is India.
Yeah, I've done it so much that now it's like I don't want that to be the interference in my experience of it, because it can be more like kind of subconscious and it'll find a way. Like this is like more for me to absorb, So I ended up hanging out with the Aghori. He's giving me his entire life story, and what happened was, of course, I went to all of these other cities, but this character never left my mind, and so I was going to say that, and also like he almost, I think. This guy almost tried to kill me on my last day when he found out that I'm going to leave, like I'm leaving. Because in those days, Varanasi, there was no smartphones as such. It wasn't like so widespread. So even now you can, but I think at the time you could find so many dead bodies just floating in the river and all,
Yeah.
Like in the river, suddenly you're swimming and all. And there's this blue body floating next to you.
Right.
So it was like known that, of course, it is a city of death and all, but I think if you kind of fell into the water, no one would be able to find you or like trace you and stuff.
So it was just like you relying on your senses and
pretty much, yeah.
Spontaneity से बंदा मिल गया दोस्ती कर लिया. ऐसा नहीं है कि forums पे search कर रहे हैं best place to find Aghoris in Varanasi.
ऐसा तो हो ही नहीं सकता because like the best place is actually across the river
Yeah.
where they eat they eat human meat, right?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
controversial
yeah.
stuff about them. So
Did this guy eat human meat or no?
yeah, all the time. Like he's like he explained to me, he's like tastes pretty much just like chicken. They don't find food. Then what they do is basically, I remember he had a tagline. It's like, no, me poor baba, no money, no dollar, but I can eat in a 5-star hotel. I can eat on the street. I don't care. And he told me this tale about how basically sometimes if they don't have any money to buy any food, or even get any human meat, because human meat comes from like the funerals actually. But what they'll do is, if a funeral is going on, they'll wait for the body to kind of like disconnect, and 2-3 of them will steal a leg of the fire and like take it across the river.
और खाते हैं लो यार, टांग आ गई है.
खाते हैं. So very fascinating. I mean, I think in a weird way, I found it very admirable also that this is a very fascinating lifestyle. It really seems to be above everything.
But how did he try to kill you? क्या उसने कैसे?
I mean, he tried to lure me into a dark alley. Could be me overthinking it.
What the fuck, bro?
Yeah.
Man, sure.
He tried to lure me into a dark alley and really insisted and all. And then, of course, later on when I told this story to other people, they were saying, hey, they don't let you go, huh? So it's a bit weird that he actually let you go. People who have kind of like studied them anthropologically. I was like, yeah, I guess maybe it was just my sincerity. It was like, he's like, theek hai, jaiye. But then when I mean, coming back to it, this character never left me, yeah. I did the trip, finished the trip. Then by then it was like, now there was like a lot of pressure from even my parents saying, or at least my father, that's saying that, hey, listen, get your life together. Like, what are you doing and all. I bummed around even more in Delhi in those days. I tried to do this. I tried to get a job on a film at the time. I didn't like it. So I think it was like always like sending mixed signals that, hey, he wants to get into film, but he's not liking working on film. So, it was like some Bollywood film. I don't want to name it, but at some point there was like a lot of pressure. My father said, hey, listen, get out of the house, go out, figure things out. I was like, okay, maybe I'll go to Bombay. Now I'm like, man, where do I go to Bombay? Because I don't like half these films that are made out of there.
Yeah.
Right? So I had an aunt who lives in Bombay. He said, you go to Bombay, I don't care. Get yourself a job, you're going. If that's what you want to do. I think in his head, he thought that, hey, this guy's going to bum around for a week, which usually happens to so many people.
Yeah.
Won't get a job. He'll come back and then maybe he'll have the real life. So weirdly, this is a damn interesting story. So I'm like, and what had happened in this time was, I had chanced upon a film called John and Jane, which is Oshim's film. It's wild. I think it's like probably one of the greatest documentaries ever made, I think. It's also like this hybrid docu-fiction thing, about call centers and at the time like booming in that early 2000s, late 90s, but shot on celluloid and was like so much control. So basically all that void I was feeling, initially, I felt like, hey, here's a director who's doing something very different. I couldn't put a finger on it, but he seems to be a guy who's interested in the themes I'm interested in, like sci-fi in a weird sense, which no Indian filmmaker was doing, or this contemporary, like the contemporary India, the city life. So on a whim, I said, hey, I asked my aunt, she's like, any directors you want to meet? So I was like, hey, Oshim Ahluwalia. And she knew him. She's like, oh, I know him, yeah.
That's crazy. That's
crazy, right? So I'll see if I can call him or something. Next day, she bumped into him at a cafe. Hey, my nephew wants to kind of meet you, work with you. So I was like, okay, this is, I guess, the way to go, man. I ended up landing in Bombay. And this Oshim will take my call only for 1 week. So I'm just bumming around. So I was like, maybe this is not happening. Anyway.
So what year is this?
This is 2014.
Okay.
Anyway, so we meet. He calls me on a film set. He's shooting an ad there. He runs a company called Future East, which I learned after meeting him. And I think they do way more commercials and advertising than feature films. And by then, he had done a film called Miss Lovely, which was based on like the B-grade cinema, like the soft porn industry.
Is it Miss Lovely Armed and Dangerous? Yeah, koi aur picture hai. There's a Miss Lovely that Manu Joseph has also written the screenplay for.
No, that's maybe different.
Achha, theek hai,
So then, and that had gone to Cannes, and also like very formally sophisticated. So by then I'd seen Miss Lovely also. By the time I got to meet him, and I was like, hey, this is like damn interesting. He's got so much control, a sophisticated form, which didn't exist in most Indian cinema at the time. And he's making films about like pulp, like the sex industry. So this was damn interesting. Like these kind of conflicting forces finding their way into cinema for me is kind of the most purest form of watching something. So I was like, okay, let me meet him. We met. I think he thought I'm some like real cocker from Delhi.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, this guy's aunt has found me. Nothing's going to happen. Maybe I'll give an internship or something. We'll see. But I think what happened, I think he realized that I had a thing about cinema. I was really passionate about it.
He probably saw your taste.
He saw my taste. I think he said you have a vibe, which is a word he likes to use a lot. So, and I was like, man, I don't want to work on commercials and all in this thing. So if you want to do a film together, he's like, I don't do that many films. So I was like, okay, but I'll work on film stuff. So we started working on film development, like developing things and all. One of those films that came out of that was an experimental film called Events in a Cloud Chamber with the painter Akbar Padamsee.
Father of Alik Padamsee. Or the other
he's
way around.
relative. I don't know exact.
I've just seen the name on art galleries. That's why.
I see. Yeah, he's one of the greatest contemporary kind of artists from that era. You know, he kind of came about during M.F. Hussain and Raza and Souza.
अच्छा इनके बाद आया है?
Around the same time.
Is he part of the Bombay Progressives or no?
I mean, now he's dead. By the time we made this film, he was already kind of in his late 80s. And anyway, I worked on this film. It was shot on like 8mm a film camera. We worked on this film. We worked on a few other ideas, etc. I think about a year and a half into working with him, then I said, hey, listen, man, like this is getting a bit overbearing for me because I felt like I'm putting too much into his work and maybe I can put that much. Even if I put like a quarter of it into something I want to do, I could come out, and make something interesting. And then I think at the time he was like, hey, listen, it's very competitive out there. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think anyone wants to lose like a good worker.
Sir, वक्त आ गया मेरे को अपनी उड़ान बढ़नी है, sir.
So anyway, so I was like, hey, and then by then I was like, I hadn't gotten over Sadhu as a character. I'd already started thinking, hey man, what about putting a Sadhu character, this Aghori character in a city? What would happen then? Would he be rebellious, or would he just kind of morph into the requirements of the city? Like the competitiveness of city life. And then I started drawing this parallel while working with Oshim, etc. Because we were also, the weird thing about working with Oshim was that I got exposed to even more like underground cinema. Like really like experimental sci-fi films by like Alexander Kluge and Jordan Belson, who did this weird kind of like really fascinating like visuals, like kind of like basically what they say is that all a Tree of Life, which is Terrence Malick's film, was pretty much taken from there, yeah. And like really interesting stuff. Also like Indian cinema, like really like underground experimental Indian cinema.
Right.
So I was like kind of like pretty much in the depths of cinephilia while working at Future East. So filmmaking was always kind of at the forefront of pretty much all the thoughts I had. So I was like, hey, listen, what's damn interesting is that I started drawing parallels basically between this Aghori Sadhu character and filmmakers. And I started thinking they're damn familiar, they're damn similar. They like to manipulate reality. They're quite exploitative, both of them. They create a fantasy around them, which is a bit schizophrenic. So I said the basic idea is what happens when these two characters meet.
Right.
And then the form you see in the film is basically I play that character in a way. And I make a film about this fictional sadhu in Bombay.
Yeah.
And of course, then I said, hey, maybe he takes a job as a driver. Then what happens, Yeah,
also, he's a descendant of sadhus, but he doesn't practice the sadhuism in Mumbai, right?
No, because there's no place for it, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit ridiculous because now the religion is replaced by money. Capitalism replaces religion in a very like simplistic, very straightforward way.
तो अब पता नहीं, I don't know if this will give the plot away, but till the end, जिन लोगों ने पिक्चर देखी है, मैंने कई बार देखी है, I was not sure if this is an actor or if it's just a dude you found, and you will never reveal that, will you?
I mean, you watch it, I guess. For those who watch it, it's good to know. But I think what happened actually then was that, see, I started getting a lot into literature of cinema too, right? So, very specifically, Tarkovsky, who's one of the greatest Russian directors, he wrote a book called Sculpting in Time. Are you familiar with it? Or?
No, I just know 2-3 और Oskis को जानता हूँ, जैसे Dostcast पता है मेरे को.
ठीक है. So,
और Lewandowski पता है, Bayern Munich का footballer, but नहीं.
So this is a very fascinating kind of insight, which really moved me when I kind of understood it. So Tarkovsky kind of talked about how when you open a lens, when you set up a camera, right, everything is inevitably documentary and fiction at the same time.
Even if you have a plot.
Even if you have a plot. Let's talk about it in a way. Now you're doing a period piece. Actors are in sets and it's big, costumes, big set. You're doing take after take, right? But what happens when you, between calling action and cut, you press record on the camera, right? And in a very basic sense, the camera or filmmaking, he says, it's not a medium of images. It's not a visual medium as much as it is a medium of time. So when you press record on a camera, you've documented a moment in time. So irrespective of whether you're doing a period piece with a plot, on the basic sense, in a very basic understanding, you're always documenting time. And what he says is basically like the way a sculptor takes a lump of clay and makes a work of art with it. A director's job in a way is to take these mosaics of time, basically take a lump of time and create a film out of it. So this kind of duality was also very fascinating for me, that hey, this is like, it's not just like what's happening in front of the camera is as interesting. What's happening behind the camera is also equally interesting. So not just like what are we watching, but who's doing the watching. So in a way, that's why the filmmaker, you don't have to actually come into the thing. There's already a presence behind the camera.
Right.
And then you could push that even more, which is like, hey, now we've got this guy, whether he's an actor or not, he's performing in the film, right? What if the act of coming up with the performance itself is part of the cinema?
Right. The making is the story.
The process of coming up with the performance, thinking about it, the stuff you don't actually end up seeing.
Yeah.
The bad take in a way.
Have you seen, say, कुछ cartoons के अंदर, like maybe a Bugs Bunny or a Tom and Jerry, every now and then in the episodes, they will have a pencil on the screen and start erasing the character.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, तुम्हें क्या लग रहा है, तुम एक मतलब brain dead होके cartoon देख रहे हो सिर्फ. There's also the maker coming in the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not like something I did uniquely. It's kind of part of the history of cinema in a way, There's a film called Holy Mountain by Jodorowsky. It's the most trippy film you probably see. I think you should watch it. In the end, he pretty much declares, hey, they're trying to figure out what life is. And then he says, hey, this is a film, and you suddenly see the crew.
That's crazy.
It's insane. There's a Japanese film called A Man Vanishes, where it's like a documentary about a missing person in a way, right? But through the course of the film, it exposes that it itself is a film, and there's a philosophy. Gilles Deleuze is a philosopher.
What is it?
Gilles Deleuze.
Gilles Deleuze.
He's probably, he's a philosopher in a sense. I think one of the greatest philosophers ever. Not just for his contribution to philosophy. Not to get into that too much, but
please.
So basically, I think what Deleuze came from was he came kind of after postmodernism. So after the deconstructionists and after Enlightenment, deconstructionists, postmodernists. So which is by then what was happening was there was a sense of breaking down the philosophy of the past and saying everything's pretty much irrelevant and doesn't make any sense. But Deleuze came up with this interesting theory or proposition, argument, that philosophy is not a process of discovery.
Okay.
It's a way of creating. Philosophy itself is a process of creation.
As opposed to
so in a way that the philosophy is not about, let's say if you look at Greek philosophy, it was about finding a divine order.
Right. Jitne Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, same stuff, right? It's almost like remembering. Yeah. Or
trying to find the right way to be, right?
The good life is at the center.
The good life, in a way. The ideal life.
Yeah.
Here, then it becomes how should one be, in a way, in between with the Enlightenment, post-Enlightenment. And then towards the end, Deleuze says, but what about living in a way where it doesn't matter, but the creation of meaning itself is philosophy. So whether the philosophy of a present time doesn't have to be relevant to today, it has to be relevant to those times. And just in that context, and within the present day, the purpose of philosophy in a way is that, so basically said that the three essential ingredients to life: art, science and philosophy. Right? So for example, like a glass of water, right? Now, an artist could come around and paint a completely photorealistic version of it, or a completely like surreal version of it, or like a poet could describe it in a way, right? A scientist would come and break it down in terms of like the molecules,
right,
the glass, how it comes together, physics of how I'm holding it. A philosopher would probably ask, in a classical sense, is it half full or half empty? or like, hey, is it? How would the water feel after I drink it?
So, imaginate the water.
The water, yeah. So, what philosophy does is it gives way for concept creation, and then science can find a way to answer those questions. So, I think it's a very optimistic look at philosophy, right? And so, in that contribution to philosophy in that sense, but in general, he also wrote 2 books around cinema. One is called Movement Image, and the other one is called Time Image. And it can get very technical.
Please, bro,
and geeky.
We're trying to be nerds here.
Let me try to find a way to kind of truncate the whole thing. So basically what he said was that he broke down films basically in a kind of like pre-World War, post-World War, with kind of Hitchcockian films being like the transition. So in a very basic sense, Movement Image talks about the 3 parts of a film. Perception, action, and in between that is like affection. So, how a character could have a perceived problem, how it affects them, and
what they do to solve it,
and the action, or how they do to solve it, right? And all of classical cinema was pretty much focused on creating these 3 images, and it could be like and he gets into small specifics like the affection images could be a close-up where you see how a
man is brooding, for example.
Exactly.
Which उसे खबर मिली है कि जैसे तेरी बीवी का मौत हो गई.
Yeah, we gasp or something. A long shot could be a perception image. But even like a close-up of a bottle could be a affection image,
right?
Because it gives an identity to the bottle and gives it a kind of like importance.
Right.
So there were these films that were kind of pre-World War focused on this. And what happened in the World War was that because the world was kind of destroyed, cinema started reinventing itself, right? Which is why you had the French New Wave, Italian neorealism,
right?
That kind of really drifted away from this classical filmmaking into something which he terms called time image. That what if between perception, affection, and action, you have thought?
What does that mean?
The thought. What that means is like, what is the character thinking? We're spending time with the character without them actually going forward and taking a kind of cinematic action.
Right.
And what you do is when you have thought of the character in between, which could really mean like spending time with the character doing nothing. In a very basic sense.
So help me break this down. जैसे anime के अंदर they have this thing. I mean, I haven't watched too much anime, but वो लोग जब कुछ सोच रहे होते हैं तो उसके वो जो मन में चल रहा होता है, that is played out. Like their thoughts are played out as they're sort of in the back brooding about कि मेरे सामने एक opponent आया है, मुझे इसे हराना है, लेकिन मेरे को लग रहा है मैं हरा नहीं पाऊंगा. That you hear, right? That's the thought.
Not really. I'm not so familiar with anime either. But have you seen a film called Bicycle Thieves?
I have not.
Doesn't matter. Citizen Kane. I'm just trying to think of films around the time. Doesn't matter. Bicycle Thieves is about a guy whose bicycle gets stolen.
ठीक है.
Right? In a more conventional sense, the film would be about this guy's bike getting stolen, him finding out who the antagonist is, the person who stole the bike, and finding a way to get the bike back.
Yeah. पूरा arc complete हो गया story का.
Exactly. Now, what happens in the film is that his bike gets stolen, and we spend the entire day with him trying to figure out his life without having the bicycle.
Okay, interesting.
And it doesn't matter whether he gets the bicycle in the end or not, but we're dealing with his inner kind of inner feelings and thoughts, which you kind of get through the passage of time. So in a way, between Tarkovsky and Deleuze, what he kind of proposes is that now movement and image, or movement and action, are subordinated by time.
Fascinating.
It's very fascinating. But anyway, not to get too geeky and intellectual about this stuff, because...
कोई बात नहीं bro, there is no harm in that. No, because I've never heard of it like that. whenever I've tried to sort of look at जैसे basic storytelling की classes होती हैं, the way they go is like, bro, एक conflict आया, फिर उसने rising action हुआ, फिर उसने उसे fight करा, defeat करा, फिर climax आया, and then, you know, they tie up all the loose ends. That's what they say is a good story. But it's like the bike being stolen, से उसके बाद it just triggers a bunch of things where he's not necessarily looking to be a hero and get it back, so it's a good story. It's more like how does his inner life change completely, right?
Yeah.
And but do people indulge in that kind of stuff? And more so specifically, say in the context of your film Sadhu in Bombay, right? Were you trying to recreate something like that there?
Yeah, this is why I wanted to say I don't want to sound too intellectual, because eventually for me, cinema is about sex, drugs, and violence. You know, it makes a more pure form of cinema. You know, stuff that's kind of morally murky,
right?
Which kind of puts you in a lot of self-doubt, or raises enough arguments and conversation, and you know, can be subversive or transgressive.
Yeah.
So this thing, you know, like, so which is what I want to get at, like, that there's an interesting way of looking at film, that it doesn't have to be either or, you know, which is why I am kind of like turned off by both, which is high art or low art. You know, I want something that's in between, or does both. It goes up and down. Right. You know, it's everything. In a way, it's everything together. You know, that's what makes pulp, right?
Yeah, because pulp, I think, if I may define it right, is low culture being risen up by good storytelling and literature, right? Otherwise, एक typical driver की कहानी के अंदर वो वाला वो मज़ा नहीं होगा. Like you said before, it's just going to be a social narrative जहाँ पे जिंदगी के through जा रहा है कि देखो उसके struggles देखो, ये देखो, वो देखो. There is no real depiction of the evil in him or the malice in him. And even if there is, then it's like purely villanistic driver. But like who we see in your film, I mean, at times I want to empathize with him. At times like, बहन चो कितना हरामी आदमी है ये.
Yeah. And what you do realize at the end of the film is that he's only a harami because the filmmaker is a harami. You know? Which is pretty much, I mean, which is also like a introspective, like self-reflexive thought.
Yeah.
That as creators, we're all a bit malicious.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know where we started at.
No, that's okay, bro. I love this. So, but okay, I'm more interested in this philosophy of cinema that you spoke about. So, are there ऐसे, मतलब you clearly when you got into the scene, you realized कि यार यहाँ पे जो mass produced garbage बन रहा है, मुझे वो नहीं बनाना. And you started checking out authors, and when you met Ashim, you got exposed to more cinema, right? And ऐसी some other transformative books, pieces that sort of helped your approach, even leading up to the newer work that you've created.
Well, yeah, interesting question. So what happened actually interestingly was, yeah, of course, I mean, so many films, man. I can just go on and on naming films and become that fucking cinephilic chudu, just keep naming films after the other, and you're like, nahi dekha.
यार, अच्छा ठीक है.
What I'm trying to say is this, I'm getting at something interesting. What happened then was that I made Sadhu in Bombay, and it started getting invited to lots of film festivals internationally. And I got to like be invited and travel, which was another perk. But what I got to do also was watch lots of other contemporary stuff, which you only see in film festivals. Like someone just trying an experiment. Like, does this work as a cinematic tool or a technique? And I think that exposure really opened up a lot more for me, you know. And there's so many books that came around at the time, but just this ability to travel and kind of interact directly with international filmmakers at film festivals, and watching lots of new stuff, and you know, people watching my film and having that kind of like cross-cultural discussion around cinema.
गोरे लोगों ने कैसे react करा, मतलब with subtitles also? Did they feel like, I understand India now? Like how did our international audiences perceive it when you were, you know, say filming at Thailand is where you went?
No, Thailand was Buddha MOV, but with Sadhu in Bombay premiered at a festival called European Media Art Festival.
Okay.
Which is in Germany. It's a very experimental film festival. Dealing with lots of avant-garde cinema around pretty much Europe.
Berlin में है क्या?
बिल्कुल Berlin के पास में है.
अच्छा.
तो मैं उन्होंने invite भेजा, so I was like, hey man, I never been to Berlin before that. So I was like, this is my opportunity. I'm going to go to this festival.
And go watch some techno.
I'm only looking forward to Berlin after this. So like I'll get them. You know, they'll pay for the ticket. I'll get there. And now I get an opportunity to hang out in Berlin, okay? Which I did anyway. But I got there and I was a bit overwhelmed because the film was really positively received. by audiences who were watching it, by the programmers who loved it. I mean, I wasn't prepared for that because I just made this little thing on my own, on a small little camera like one of these. And I was going to leave a night before to Berlin. And then
फिर मैं बर्गाइन की लाइन में लगूंगा.
हाँ कि 24 घंटे तो लगेंगे यहाँ घुसने में. So anyway, but the festival director said, hey, don't leave tonight, please stay on till tomorrow. I was like, no, I gotta go, man. He's like, no, but I think you should stay on till the award ceremony. So I was like, oh, really? I thought maybe they're giving me, maybe I was this Indian guy who's come, they're gonna give me something, but they gave me the best film award there, right?
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was mad. It was like suddenly I was all over, and in a weird way, this was damn fun. But I mean, I don't know if Oshim cares so much about it. For me, it was very overwhelming because they said, oh, but we also found out you worked with Oshim, and his film John and Jane also was here, and we also gave the same film Best Film Award when it was here. And these are only 2 Indian films that had premiered there. So it was this kind of surreal moment. Doesn't matter much in the larger context, but I got the award. It put the film out on like a totally different map. I started getting invited to lots more festivals. I started getting invited to lots of residency programs to, just jam with lots of other filmmakers.
Quick fallback. मेरे को ये जानना है कि मतलब फिर भी गौरव ने क्या बोला कि ये मतलब उन्होंने exactly बोला क्या पिक्चर देख के any particular comments that strike out to you क्योंकि like they're not seeing the India of mangoes and like countryside or मतलब
yeah that I think people were really interested in that. Hey, this is a contemporary side of India. This is not represented anywhere. This is the real India. What we're seeing. It's not like but actually what happens, I'll tell you what really happens is this, that lots of the other films, they're kind of made with European funding.
There?
Yeah, within India.
Achha,
lots of Indian filmmakers, directors making these independent art house films that are kind of social-realistic. Lots of them getting their funding from Europe. There's also European funding available for like developing countries to make films like this. Because there's no money in India for that stuff anyway.
Right.
So what happens is they get this European funding. Once the European funding comes in, there's a European producer. So those European films, they're kind of programmed as European films within European festivals. But I made my film on like almost no money. So I didn't really need funding.
They allow you to be more independent and do what you want?
You're proposing like, hey, I'm going to make this film for like about a village that has a water crisis. Which is, I mean...
Indie Swades.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine for those who want to do it. But that's not the stuff I'm interested in. So I felt like, yeah, sure, I can use my technique, but it's a bit of an injustice to my perspective on life in general, no?
Yeah.
So I took this film and people were like, hey, but we really want to watch stuff like this. We want to see stuff that's about the present day India, contemporary India.
Right.
And of course, the people got into like the idea of the philosophy behind it, the character, this idea. I think because for me, cinema is really about how characters respond to like the socio-economic forces around them.
Right.
I think the part of the filmmaker being as malicious or as wicked and being the kind of antagonist in the film resonated with a lot of film festivals because they're pretty much dealing with filmmakers all the time. And that's an interesting thought too, which I kind of took which I took forward into my next film, being the antagonist, like viewing the filmmaker as the antagonist. Because what happens is that, I mean, a filmmaker takes his or her camera, in my case, my camera, plants it in a real environment and changes the course of history, changes everyone's behavior.
Right.
And sometimes to manipulates it in favor of a certain film they're trying to look for. So, I'm like, filmmakers are pretty much antagonists of whatever they're documenting.
I've never heard of that. तो मतलब मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि आप तो लोगों की जिंदगी बदल रहे हो, आप उनको स्टार बना रहे हो कैमरे के सामने रख के.
Star कौन बनता है? I think it's a bit of a fallacy.
No, what I mean to say is कि I've never heard someone say कि I'm the antagonist because I'm holding the camera. It's almost like my antagonism is manipulation of reality as opposed to me doing something malicious. But in Buddha or Mauve, you really take it forward. It's like कि भाई तू बंदियों के साथ सीन करता है और अच्छी तरह करता कि मैं और बढ़िया तरह से डॉक्यूमेंट कर पाऊँ. Like that shit is happening there.
Yeah, with Buddha or MOV, it was also like taking this form, not so mockumentary, but I wanted to develop this like take this hybrid form and push it even more, So, and of course, find the most pulpy thing you can speak about: sports, sex, cars, luxury, lifestyle, living, stuff that I'm very familiar with,
Right.
Pretty much like the only thing familiar in Sadhu and Bombay is like the Facebook posts that come in. That's my world in a way, right? So I want to make a film about that kid that that guy in Sadhu in Bombay, just that one photograph, right?
The kid whose face is blurred out,
Yeah.
जो पूरे दिन उल्टियाँ करता है गाड़ी में बैठ के, जो मन करता है मारने का ड्राइवर को.
Yeah, in a way. So I mean, I knew Buddha. I think he was always kind of interested in being in a film for a long time. He already had that kind of natural sense of exhibitionism in him.
Oh, real guy है वो.
Yeah.
Real cricketer है.
Real cricketer.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I thought it was just an actor, bro. What the?
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. He's a real cricketer, which I want to do. Get a real person, real cricketer, real life, and fictionalize it. And while I'm doing that, just comment about the world, comment about our digital social media kind of existence, comment about filmmaking in a weird way, you know, like all of this stuff we're speaking about in terms of time and digital screen culture and the context it has in terms of cinema and viewing films in the cinema. So it suddenly felt like this is something I can do, you know. And it wasn't like it just I had a preconceived thought. Now when I kind of in retrospect, I think what happened was that Buddha was very keen to be in a film, and I was speaking with him. Yeah, let's do something. I think I started getting an idea for form that I could use. Sadhu and Bombay started winning a lot of awards, yeah, with cash money, like cash prize. So I was like, hey, so I got some money, I can actually do something with it. You know, rent a camera, making an interesting film. I had some time off. He said, hey, listen, this cricket tournament is happening. I'm just letting you know. So I said, okay, the rest maybe I'll figure out. Maybe I just go and do this tournament, yeah.
Randomly just go cover it and see what happens.
Go shoot this tournament because the scale of it I can't replicate again, right? Everything else we'll figure out. I go there, started shooting this tournament. But I started seeing him in the light of this character that's coming to my mind while I'm shooting. I'm like, hey, I can really push this. This could become something. Because here's someone who's hyper aware of the camera. So he's not just giving me something that I want. He's giving me a little bit extra. Like something that he wants to put in the film as well. So it was kind of interesting. What happened was he thought it's like some MTV style film about like David Beckham or something, you know, like I'm going to be one of these guys. And in my mind it was like an experiment on identity and masculinity and what happened was that it didn't end up being either. It ended up being like a conflict of both. Like one trying to make the film about themselves, you know. And I was like, hey, the film should be about this. It shouldn't be about him or me trying to do this kind of this ping pong between the two.
Right.
It could make something interesting. So I was here living in Bombay at the time. So I would go shoot a little bit, come back, edit for a little bit. You know, which is what happens in most documentaries.
And the plot is just impromptu. Jo chal raha hai. There was no sequence of events that you were following. This will come after this.
So that's what I'm saying. I would shoot a little bit, come back, try to edit it, get a sense of this next sequence I need. Go for that one after maybe a couple of months. But every time I'd go for the sequence I want, he would give me something on his own, like one extra little bit. Just by following him, you know. I say, hey, this is damn interesting, man. Like,
were the chicks he was hooking up with, were they real? I mean, what am I saying?
Yeah, they're all real.
No, like क्या वो मतलब उसकी
holograms.
So वो actually उसकी जिंदगी के अंदर वो सब
That was part of his lifestyle. It was part of his lifestyle.
And they all were okay with being on camera, you know, as this was all happening.
It's interesting you asked that. So what happens is it's a question that has come up once before, and it ended up being a quite explosive at one of these mommy screenings.
Yeah.
Because what I say is that I think it's a bit misogynistic to ask that question, to assume that the girls are not okay to be on camera.
नहीं अरे यार वो नहीं कह रहा मैं कि ऐसे कि bro देख मैं तेरे को ऐसे hot take ले रहा हूँ या दबा रहा हूँ. मैं generally जानना चाह रहा हूँ कि ये जो process था कि you know he's on, like, did everyone know that there's a camera crew following him around? Like that is what I'm really asking. Like
Always.
They were all knew that they're being filmed, right?
Yeah.
So they were a part of this movie.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
saying.
It
now. Usually I never answer this. If you ask me, I always give a bit of a facetious answer like this one. And it happened like one time I was taking mommy, one big actress was watching it. It was one of those celebrity screenings.
No, this is not some
and she
take on.
She threw a full scene and on. She threw the mic and on.
No. Because
I knew you were not doing that, but I'm just saying in general sense, because if someone has been around for me being very like abrasive about this stuff, I'm saying no. They're all credited. You see the credits, everyone's credited. So that's fascinating too, you know. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
नहीं कोई सीन नहीं है. मैं तो
I wasn't
मैं
saying it to
चलूँ.
you if it came across.
नहीं. But I have a question though.
I'm going to say something actually.
हाँ बताओ.
and I think I can only answer this now, having lived in Goa now for a year, that Goa was a very different place back then. It was only 2016 when we started shooting this. But yeah, so I think 2 of the 3 girls, one was a friend. The 2 of them were just people we met in Goa. Strangers. Okay to be on camera.
Yeah.
To do a sex scene.
That's fucking crazy.
Which is, I don't think it's possible now in today's world.
Kyun post-pandemic ke baad all these digital
Not
nomads
just post-pandemic, like even pre-pandemic, it changed. The world kind of just shifted. I think, of course, there was the Me Too movement. There was lots of these like, there's lots of like these YouTubers who are like proposing a certain kind of like hyper-masculine, kind of lifestyle or.
I know a bunch.
There's a wing. There's a whole upswing of this like really extreme stuff. So I think now it's like everyone's kind of a bit wary. I think what was happening then was it was a bit innocent. Like we were all approaching it with a bit of innocence. Everyone was kind of being part of it.
The big other didn't register in your mind so much, like the mob so much. Ki kya kahenge log?
Yeah, exactly. So we're like, hey, I'm making this film, man. Like, let's do it. I don't know. We kind of went on a tangent there.
I have a question, bro. It's like, have you ever watched or heard about Hunter S. Thompson?
Yeah, of course.
है ना? तो
Yeah.
I was gonna say that this whole idea of like just going there, figuring it out, going there to cover a tournament and then becoming much larger is
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
वो ये तो करने जाता है, Kentucky Derby पे जाता है, वहाँ से उसको फिर पैसे मिल जाते हैं, then he's like, it stops being about the derby at all and just becomes something else, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, what you're doing is like, it's a very gonzo style of just,
Yeah.
okay, this is the film, I guess.
This is the film now, and I
Yeah.
think it's about going through that. And of course, I guess the only time you're kind of being the author is when it comes to editing. What you're putting in, what you're putting out.
Right.
And there's so much, like, while the film was happening, we did a rough cut to Film Bazaar, which happens in Goa. It's like a big co-production market. It won an award there because like it was like this weird kind of new age Indian film. No one had kind of seen it. So I was like, hey, but this is happening. I'm not done with the film. So I kind of put that also in the film, Then
Unfinished film डाल दी उसके अंदर.
No, unfinished film. That while we're filming, this film is winning awards and also.
That's crazy.
so it's but eventually to answer the first question you had, that there was no plot in that sense because that would kind of have been very reductive.
Right.
But what happened was the natural like emotional arc of the film follows Buddha's life, which is the transition between cricket and then real estate towards the end and the limbo in between. So in a weird way, if you film someone, that was a realization I had much later, that if you film someone for long enough, it's kind of interesting that their life starts falling into this 3-act structure.
Really?
Yeah, you start somewhere, you have an idea of changing that, and then by the end of it, there's a shift,
Yeah.
It was a fascinating
Like if you
thought.
film someone losing their hair at the start where it's just like थोड़ी सी male pattern baldness है, by the end of 2 years like they're going to be bald,
I
that's
don't know, mean.
and then there's a middle and at this time, so you're doing this independently. You did not need any particular approvals. जो लोग काम कर रहे हैं on your set, if you can call it that, were they giving inputs, or were you just doing it completely by yourself, like whatever comes to your head you're shooting it?
Totally by myself. I was shooting everything on my own. I was pretty good at, like I said, operating cameras. Sometimes I have a sound guy come in if I know that I need to shoot something specific.
But no bureaucracy around कि ये approve कराओ, ऐसा करो, just yourself.
Never. Not even like, I mean, there was no idea of it. It was like totally on my own. The only person I had on board at the time was basically a friend of mine who was making lots of advertising commercials and all. And I shot like half the film and he's like, hey, listen, like I want to produce this with you, so if you need any more money, I'll start paying for the rest of it. Because he thought like this could become something. So that was pretty much it. And there was no like, oh, do this, do that. He just kept paying little bits of money whenever needed until post-production. So that's it,
फिर तो class आ गया, and then you started shooting class. 2019 is when you started doing it.
Yeah, I guess. Class actually happened much later. I was actually in between going to do another film, which didn't happen. I ended up doing a short which you spoke about, this Punjab Police, which is like like a bit of a follow-up to Sadhu in Bombay, but it's more personal in a way. It's like it's in Punjabi, it's set in Punjab, it's more of me in it. It's like a bit more self-reflexive.
Still have to watch that.
Yeah, sure. Like, I mean, you catch it. I haven't put it out yet. I'll be happy to share it with you. But it's a bit more personal, and I'm still wary about whether I want to put it out. There's a lot of political stuff in it, so let's see.
That's why it comes up on Mubi without the play button on it.
Exactly.
It does come up, and I was like, मैं इसको before you came, I was like trying to hit play to
if
see.
you'd asked me, I would have sent it to you.
No, but I just discovered it today because I thought that those are the two films that you had made and then Class. But I'm just wondering, yaar, fir to, if you were doing some this stuff so renegade, so on your own, but Class to bada show tha, bada scene tha. What was the transition to that like? And I mean, thoda sa, can you talk to me about like the BTS of maybe Osham approaching you, say we want to make this and you jumping on board for this project? Because I mean, when you reached out, I was like, okay, bro, I have to watch the series first. I don't want to just like, hey, bro, come here and do the podcast. So मैंने देखी, and then I binge watched it in 2 nights.
Oh, really? Cool.
And I was like, bro, यार ये तो, because मैं उस दुनिया को जानता हूँ, अमीर बदतमीज बच्चों वाली स्कूल वाली, मैं उस दुनिया को जानता हूँ, उस पर रहा भी हूँ, और वो प्रहार भी करा है और प्रहार सहा भी है उस चीज़ का. So I know that a lot of criticism has come around like it not being realistic. I think it's super realistic. But why did you jump on board when you were just doing your own independent stuff?
See, I mean, I was doing lots of my independent stuff, not for any other reason that it gave me a lot of liberty to kind of stick with my own thoughts, you know. And it's not like I hadn't interacted with the industry till then. It was always like we were never on the same page. So, and always like kind of being a younger person, you're a bit more rebellious. So you, instead of like getting someone on board, you just kind of reject it altogether.
Bagawat is always on.
So what happened weirdly was then Oshim called me. He's like, hey, listen, I'm doing this thing based on, it's set in like this, about rich kids in Delhi. And that already kind of like so a bulb went off. Hey, I'm like, this is exactly what I'm going to do. You know, because I had already kind of like you said, had a very close experience with that, you know. I went to one of these schools in Delhi initially before I went to Sanar, which is a boarding school. So because when you're growing up as a pre-teen, it doesn't matter much. But then I went to boarding school, which was kind of a safe ground from Delhi, I feel now in retrospect. But every time I was kind of going back to Delhi, the lifestyles of these friends I had was just kind of going out of control. Yeah. So in a weird way, as a boarding school kid, you kind of get a bit like repulsed by it. Like, hey,
सिर्फ bullying ही तो है bro, और क्या है? थोड़ी बहुत bullying है, बस बंदे हैं सारे.
Not just bullying. I think it's not like in boarding school you're not doing any of the fucked up stuff anyway. Yeah. You're doing everything.
लोग आयोडेक्स की ब्रेड लगा के खाते थे. Is that?
सब खाते थे यार. वो diluter डालते थे, पीते थे. Used to sniff it. Yeah. I don't want to.
Because I know boarding school kids get creative with drugs because you know there's not the metropolitan access to drugs.
Exactly. Like ये भी हो सकता है, वो भी anything goes यार. And then I came back to Delhi and I think around the time I was trying to become a filmmaker. I remember there's a time when I was like carrying a camera everywhere. Suddenly when I became the guy with the camera, it gave me a bit of a guise, like a armor. I could go anywhere and like not really be part of it. So I was able to like really hang out with all of these Delhi people. Okay. And the thing is like going back to what you say, it's not a part of reality. I think that we have to realize it's firstly set in Delhi. And it's not set in any other city like Bombay. What happens in Delhi, specifically to Delhi, is that you can really get caught in an insulated bubble.
100%.
You can just be within a bubble in a very insulated existence, happening in parallel to pretty much the rest of the city. Yeah. No interaction with the reality of the people around you. And across demographics.
You can go to Khan Market and back to your house. And that can be your life.
Within your air-conditioned car. And, you know, but also it's not just this, right? You can go to Khan Market, come back to your house, but which house are you coming back to? Are you going to like a farmhouse in Chhatarpur? Or are you going to just like are you going to GK? Or are you going to, wherever else you're going to, you know? Right. So it's like, we're like anywhere from a very privileged part of society. But this show is not about that. It's not about the privilege. It's about the extremely filthy rich. The 10% of the 1%. Right. Who are pretty much like, you know, like, they could be living anywhere. They're spending in Swiss francs while living in India in that sense, you know. And, you know, the people with like petrochemical empires and pharmaceuticals, real estate, designers. It's really like a small, I mean, some people we don't even know what they do. They're just really wealthy who don't know what they do. So we're talking about that very specific demographic, the extremity of it. And having kind of had close proximity to that world and then kind of being in and out of it, it helped me always develop this insider-outsider relationship with it, you know? Which is also drew me to a film like Bollywood MOV, you know? Because like that's also pretty like edgy and extreme. It really pushes the boundary on filmmaking. So I was like, hey, this is something I'm damn interested in thematically. And And I was like, hey, and Oshim's doing it. So, and I knew he's a bit of a bull. So I knew that he's a guy who's going to like protect this thing. He's not going to like succumb to any industry pressure.
एक item number लेके आओ. Like that, right?
Or anything else, because everyone has a lot of creative inputs. But pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to us. Any ideas that they have, like item number, might as well put an item number, man. At least we can make it raunchy. So I was like, he's going to really fight for this thing, and then of course I figured it's based on Elite. I watched a bit of Elite. I was like, hey, this is like total garbage. Sorry, I don't know, but
I haven't watched it. So
yeah, I mean, okay, I'll tell you what it is. It's very soapy. It's very like very TV in terms of coverage. It doesn't have a cinematic feel to it. But then I said, hey, but this can't be what Oshim wants to do. Like, he would never do this. So when I spoke to him further, he told me about his ideas about the show, what he wants to do, and the fact that he's looking for another director to work with him on it. And for me, it was like, hey, this is a world I really want to work in, do something, create stuff. I also want to do something with big toys, you know, do something on industry scale. So initially it felt like it's thematically very interesting to me, and also safe kind of ground to like do something in industrialized cinema, you know? So I was like, yeah, I'm on, man. So early 2020 is when he called. I got on. It wasn't also like a simple process to come on this show, huh? It wasn't like he called and I was on the show. I think he spoke to Netflix and the producers, and everyone was like, hey, but this guy's really like...
Who's this art house guy, yaar? Kaun hai ye?
Not just art house guy, he seems to be a bit of a rebel doing his own thing, you know? So can he like really do this like narrative thing? So Oshim really pulled his muscle and got like a test shoot arranged for me. Like with spec actors, a real unit, hired a full set floor. We did 2 scenes, spec scenes based on a spec script.
Right.
Which were then later approved by everybody saying, oh, of course. I mean, the thing is that sometimes you just assume, I think that if you're doing something art house or independent, you're not capable of doing something conventional. It's kind of the other way around.
It's like you haven't made your bones. You don't know the basics of how you would do it jab scale bada ho jata hai.
Yeah, but it's reversed actually. What happens is you know you can do it, but you want to push it.
Right.
I came on this thing and then we were like, let's do it, you know.
Yeah, and Naina told me कि यार you were responsible, basically तुमने वो arcs लिखे थे for Balli and Sharan and Koel Kalra. So like, that was specifically you? Why did you decide that this Jat boy from Nurpur deserves to be like in a love triangle with these 2 people who are like extremely rich, slated to marry?
So I didn't write any of that stuff. I mean, I gave some inputs wherever needed. Wherever I could, wherever I thought I could, and lots of the stuff didn't make it into the show, you know, like as backstories, like the escort racket, etc., or like like Bahu Guna, who's Sohani's bouncer, also came from like real incidents. Like someone said, hey, you know, these kids all have bouncers who walk around with them.
Yeah, आजकल बहुत सारी reels viral हो रही हैं जहाँ पे ना दिल्ली VIP life को दिखाया जाता है. वो उस पे लिखा होता है ना pilot लिखा होता है जीप के ऊपर, तो बच्चे उसके अंदर खुद POV से अंदर घुसते हैं और वो सायरन बजाते हुए जा रहे होते हैं, सारे 6 बाउंसरों की टोली. That's after, and it's interesting how around the same time as Class is released, those reels have become popular. I watched a bunch of those.
Interesting. There's like a collective consciousness kind of
probably, bro, but it's
not just that. I think it's like in general, the last few years, internationally also, there's been a lot of interest in this like eat the rich. What do they like? Eat the rich trope has become very, very popular. I think some of the films I like have always occupied that space. And but coming back to your question, so what had happened was that I think Oshim was damn keen to not have an episodic split, which is usually how it happens.
What does that mean?
That there's a showrunner, and then there's a different director on each episode.
Correct.
Which you'll see it many times, a different credited episode on each episode. But what happens then is that because we were trying to create something with a cinematic consistency that lends itself to cinema and not TV per se, to have a certain form, to syntax, you know, by which I mean that there's a particular way that with a particular employment in terms of how the camera will stage the actors.
Right. It's not so much about the plot कि मतलब एक चीज follow करेगी. It's about like what it looks like to people.
What it looks like, how it's covered. You know, like what will happen is it's not in a very bare sense. You can, if you revisit the show, you'll see it's not covered in a very traditional kind of, there's a wide shot, there's a close-up of 2 actors, then we go to the next scene. There's a very specific, sophisticated mise-en-scène, which is even rare to find in international TV. The wide moves in the close, moves out, and based on the subconscious motives of the characters, which is very difficult to do on TV because you're kind of doing this in on a slightly cut down scale in terms of budget.
Right.
You have a lot more to cover during the day.
Like CID looks the same because it's been running for so long.
Yeah, CID or even that American CIA or whatever it's called.
CSI,
you know.
Even what's the kya naam hai uska? Blacklist.
I haven't watched that yet, but most of it looks like that, you know, because you're shooting, they have to shoot so much. So Oshim, of course, fought for that. Like, hey, we're not going to shoot like 10 pages of TV a day. We're going to do maybe 2 to 3 pages, do a shot, like a shot division based on shots, like have the day scheduled based on how many shots we need to do, which happens in film a lot, where you do 7 to 8 shots a day, but doesn't happen in TV as much.
Right.
Which is why we went on shooting for like 150 days. And going back to your initial question, so yeah, 2 directors, no episode split, but narrative split. So me and Gul, who's the other director, we came as directors and we split it based on character arcs, on subplots. So I was kind of doing, I mean, initially it was the divide was pretty, I'll do all the rich world kind of because I'm much closer to it, and Gul will do the other world.
Amir to Garib makes sense.
No, not that. It's just that I've been so close to it. And I think that the other stuff had needed a little bit more empathy.
Yeah.
And that, you know, like especially...
And you're not an empathetic dude?
I tried not to be. Just kidding. But I think like also like she did like Dhruv and Shayan's character arc, and I think that the female gaze on that really lent itself, like it really made it like...
It's a very soft
It's very soft, and I may have maybe made it a little bit more...
गाली देते हुए एक दूसरे को कर रहे हैं.
No, a little bit more grungy or gritty, and which may or may not have worked. I don't know. And of course, I think maybe it was a bit more fitting for this like kinkier stuff also. So, you know, like during the parties, I think it's been so close to these parties and how it works. Yeah. So I think, and Ashwin and knew each other for a while now, right? So he knew the world I belong to, where I'm coming from, what I can lend to this world in that sense.
But I love the Noorpur party, bro. Was that you?
Yeah, we did.
क्योंकि I mean I've seen parties like that in the heydays of Delhi के dingy उसके अंदर, but I was very surprised by how it was visualized because you would assume something more bare bones, टूटा-फूटा, but it was lit. It was lit in its own like, you know, slum like sense. अपना मतलब scene चल रहा था.
Yeah. That was the idea, because I don't think like, I mean that's again, it's a bit of stereotype that slum party has to look a certain way, but I don't think that's true, you know. I think like if you look at all the characters within the grungy, grittier world, they're all pretty hip, man. You see all the hairstyles, the clothing.
You can just smell Balli's cologne. Like, वो बिल्कुल नहा के आया. He just looks like a dude who's always fresh, taken a shower. Yeah.
And that's my interaction with like most of Delhi in a way, yeah. Like,
but हाँ नहीं यार, खासकर वो because he's also a TikToker, right? So
he's a TikToker, yeah. And actually, TikTok, even you know, this guy's friends in the show, Neeru's friends, Manni and what's his other friend's name? Yeah? I'm forgetting the character's name now.
Let's just call him Dude X for now.
Yeah, but you know, Neeru, played by Gulfateh, who plays Dheeraj's elder brother, they're 2 friends, who are in and out. They're all TikTok stars, So Ocean found them out of TikTok. That these are some real guys. Let's put them in the show.
They're really TikTok stars?
Yeah, real TikTok stars, man. I mean, the whole thing was cast like this. It was not like the bouncer outside the Nigerian party. Isn't some actor, he's a real bouncer. Not to say anything incriminating, but all the Hawala stuff, all like the Ghaffar Market stuff, these guys are all non-actors. In fact, even the main ensemble of 11 people, other than Gulfateh, they've never been in anything. It was kind of like casting for the type. So really non-actors in a way, working on this thing of this massive scale. Even myself coming from this independent kind of really like edgy thing, working on this industry. So it was like, industrialized scale. So it seemed like a fucking really interesting thing to be working on, And having to work with Oshim was like beautiful in that sense, You know, for so many reasons. That, of course, the way the world he had put together, the vision, he gave a lot of freedom in terms of how you want to stage it, what you want to do with it. Me being so excited about working on this was like, let's push it, let's like stage it, let's get the camera to move in a certain way, let's make it less complicated. And his experience, like, firstly, he was a great protection between, I'll tell you what I mean. Between us, by us I mean Gol and myself, directing this thing, and basically the big boss, or the big bosses. Because we were staging this stuff. And then Oshim kind of protected that, which was like, we're doing all this stuff. he's getting a call saying, hey man, like what are you guys doing? Like we're running over budget, 20 lakhs down, 40 lakhs down. And he was never letting that come to us.
Yeah.
So this is what I meant. Like I didn't know he would do this when I got on, but he really pushed it to kind of protect the directors. And the other thing was like he was also super helpful, yeah. Because lots of directing is pretty much just problem solving. Yeah, you can visualize it, but on set it's like every minute is costing you money. So how quickly can you solve problems that are coming up on set?
Right.
And of course you get better at it. Initially when you start a little bit slow, and you get better at it as the days go on. And especially working on something on 150 days, you're just like shooting 3-4 films at the same time. So what sometimes we could do is like, you know, if he wasn't on set, like just send him like a quick WhatsApp. Hey, it's not working. I don't know. Quick solution, like within 2 minutes, it's sorted. Or sometimes like, even before, like we would, it's a practice I love doing anyway, and we did on the show was block everything on a phone before we get on set.
Matlab?
Means that, hey man, this is the location. This is where this is your shot. You get a still on a phone. This is my shot. Or get the movement done on a phone.
Okay.
Just block it on a phone with like the ADs.
Right.
Then we stand-ins. This is the camera movement. So what that of course does is that it tells the entire crew the shot that we're doing. It isn't something random. So everyone's kind of come prepared, which is anyway like unheard of in our industry.
So they typically क्या होता है, लोग वहाँ जाके figure out करते हैं.
वहाँ जाके figure out करते हैं. So इसमें क्या होता है, we had the shot. So like, oh, this is the art. Now the art director knows. You know, Ocean's given a brief. Okay, this is the shot these guys want. This is the art. This is the production design. The DOP knows exactly what was going to be shot. He's prepared. Yeah. We are kind of prepared of what we need to get at. How long the day could be. If there's a complicated shot, now you know, this is going to take 5 hours. Right. This is simply, so you know it's going to be 1 hour. You're not like struggling, oh fuck, now we're already like 10 hours over, what are we doing next? So in that sense, it was like, hey, listen, like, so sometimes we just show to Ocean and be like, you're going to run into this problem. I can already preempt it, just based on like that 20 years of experience he has over me. You're going to run this problem. So now we're kind of like already preempting that and kind of solving that.
What was a pain to deal with? Joe, like, because I mean, beyond, I think you said you handled scale well. Matlab, what was something that was like, yaar, ye kya cheez hai?
Oh, the interesting question, man. I think just the what's the way to say it? I think the main problem was COVID on this one.
I don't know, Nana told me that they were shot in like multiple spurts.
Because we would start and then stop. Then start again. Then stop again.
So, वो character भूल जाते थे क्या? कि would they go out of like character?
They were totally go out of character. Like, you know, like so we were supposed to start in 2020, March 2020, which is when the lockdown happened. Then we just started staying in like pre-production through all that first lockdown. Lockdown only opened in August, September. But then the casting was still not locked. Because some of these guys locked. Started doing workshops with them. So we did a lot of workshops with the actors. And we started Bombay. Then it was a bit smooth. You know, like they were a bit like bang on.
Yeah.
Then we had to move to Delhi for the rest of the shoot, right?
फिर दोबारा COVID आ गया.
Got to Delhi, yeah, exactly. Got to Delhi, did the recce's, spent 6 weeks doing recce's. I did 2 days of shoot in Delhi, another lockdown. And now we're just like running, like I think behind schedule, over budgeted now because of another lockdown. People are still being paid salaries, etc. So now there's no like, once lockdown opens, everyone is like, get the shoot going. There's no time to waste. So sometimes then like this split that we had made, right? Like this is a clear narrative split. There was started being a more overlap, saying, hey, listen, like based on location or DOP, let's get this done anyway. But that wasn't a big problem. It was like, yeah, then they were kind of reset in terms of like their acting muscles had completely switched off. So they had to come back, and then we pushed on again. And then of course shooting through the pandemic with the masks and the units and like, you know, all the social distancing.
I don't miss that at all, bro.
It was absurd. I mean, I didn't get COVID throughout the whole thing. So
really?
Not even
because
once.
Of the carnivore diet?
I started it after.
Acha, okay.
Or no, I don't know. Maybe I started in between. I think I started during a Delta, like the Delta wave.
The one that actually killed people.
Yeah.
The one that fucked people up. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't miss the pandemic at all. What a fucking weird time to be alive.
It was a very strange time, you know. Yeah. Well, you were shooting it at a damn interesting thought, which was basically that we're shooting this thing during the pandemic. Everyone is pretending like in this. I mean, when you're shooting, I mean, behind the camera, everyone has masks and all. And you know, when they get on to movie, they actually put the mask on, etc. The actors are not wearing any masks. So in a way, we're shooting this during a pandemic. And what we're shooting pretends like there's no pandemic at all. You know? It's like make-believe that this pandemic isn't even happening. And then it kind of hit me that, hey, listen.
It's a pandemic.
Yeah, kind of. Because in a way, exactly what I want to get at is that we're shooting this thing, pretending the pandemic hasn't happened in our films and all the TV that was shot around the time.
Right.
But also because everything around this pandemic has already been created in the past.
Yeah.
Every film and thing that can be created about how a pandemic has already been made.
Yeah.
And how you should react during a pandemic is already out there. It's so ridiculous.
I remember in the pandemic, my father was watching a film called Contagion.
Exactly.
And I was like, अच्छा ये देख, अब हमें ऐसे behave
This is
करना
what
है.
we'll do. It's like this. The human brain just preempting or predicting the future of our own race. It's wild, yeah.
Yeah. But I also noticed फिर pandemic के बीच में ना बहुत सारे लोगों ने ऐसे smart बनने के लिए मतलब मास्क पहन के पिक्चरें शूट करनी like they started shooting like shows. I saw on a bunch of OTT platforms ऐसे आ रहे हैं कि हम pandemic में locked हैं तो एक काम करेंगे 10 लोग शूट करेंगे किसी ने अपने घर में सेल्फी सी कुछ शूट कर लिया ऐसे they were also doing that. That shit never worked because the last thing I wanted to see on screen is like people wearing masks and saying कि हम लोग हमें तो पता ही है सारे लोग live stream कर रहे हैं सारे लोग बता रहे हैं pandemic है this is already happening. You don't want to see cinema around like your situation, you know.
Also, I think it's like a lot of it has to do with like it's not coming from like a genuine storyteller. It's like, hey, how do we like capitalize on this situation?
Trending है यार, pandemic trending है.
Hashtag COVID-19, you know. So I think a lot of it is that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
बढ़िया scene है, bro. Like I said, I loved Class, and I think it's awesome that it's done because like, what was the last time you watched someone like who's so filthy rich and arrogant on screen? Like I was talking to Naina about this कि बड़े गंदे ट्रोप्स होते हैं जैसे पुराने बॉलीवुड में दिखाते हैं ना कि एक बहुत अच्छा मार्बल का स्टेयर केस होता है वहाँ एक अमीर आदमी सफ़ेद कपड़ों में होता है उसका नाम मिस्टर सक्सेना सिंघानिया ऐसा कुछ होता है और वो नीचे आता है they're very 2D like you don't really
it's very 2D because I think a lot of it has to do with like people who are making it are either like trying to avoid exposing that because they're so close
they belong to that class, right?
Or they're not, they don't belong to it at all. So it starts becoming a bit aspirational.
Yeah.
It doesn't embody this sterile kind of like self-aware vibe that we have in our show. You know? It's like people in Delhi are watching this thing, which I'm also finding quite amusing because some of this stuff is like loosely based on people I know. Like, hey, this person could be this or this person's parent could be this, and they're all kind of like really praising the show. So I'm like, it's so funny. Like Delhiites are a bit like they always believe the gossip is about the neighbor.
Yeah.
You know, so
but it's about them. It's really
about them.
Yeah.
Or so they're totally deluded. Or it's like so narcissistic. They're like, oh yes, finally something about us. You know.
Yeah, I was flying to Bombay and I took a premium economy flight. So I mean, I was like slightly late, but late as in कि मुझे पता है कि boarding time में पहुंच जाऊंगा मैं. सुबह की flight थी. तो मेरे सामने एक बंदा खड़ा हुआ था वही उसने अच्छे like he was wearing some Air Jordan shit like that, you know, and had some graying hair and तो उसको जो वो विस्तारा है काउंटर पे जो बंदी होती है उसने कहा सर आप इसका लेट हो एक्सक्यूज़ मी आई डू दिस ऑल द टाइम जस्ट गिव मी माई टिकट एंड लेट मी गो तो वो बंदी दुखी सी हो गई कि मतलब क्या है बदतमीज़ आदमी है ठीक है मतलब प्रीमियम इकॉनमी लिए तो उसकी मतलब उसको हरास भी कर रहा है ऐसे कर रहा है तो अब मेरे को पता था कि मैं सेम फ्लाइट में हूँ और ये मेरे को भी ऐसे बोलेगी कि आप ना सर लेट हो गए और जा नहीं सकते So in my head, I was like, I'm going to be an ally to her. I mean, like, मैडम वो बंदा बड़ा गंदा आदमी था क्या बोल रहा था अरे सर क्या बताऊँ and this was this nasty part of me where I like was just fake allying with her so I would make sure कि मेरे को टिकट आ जाए right instead of like shouting at her and the same dude in the flight मैंने अपना बैग नीचे रखा उसके सीट के नीचे कहता excuse me मेरे को अपना बैग यहाँ पे रखना है it's like हाँ technically he's right it's like अच्छा ये वही बंदा है it's like okay fine but then he carried that sense of smugness throughout because he got the premium economy ticket maybe he's a frequent flyer right and as a member of the same class I was like you know I can really kind of manipulate my way out of the situation and actually get on the flight because I'm also late but my approach is going to be being nice to her and it's all these little games people play when they're rich and have a lot of class in India where this dangerous sense of entitlement comes no matter what.
I think like this is yeah you're right and the day before yesterday we did this thing with Oshim and he had a very interesting observation on this too which is actually a lot of that arrogance or smugness comes from this fear of being poor. Everyone is just kind of so fearful of being poor and presenting that they're rich, that it just builds so much anxiety in everyone.
Yeah.
It has. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the history of our history as a colonized country, a partition country. I mean, a lot of Delhi is pretty much based on that.
Delhi's all appearances,
Did you
bro.
read Capital by Rana Das Gupta ever?
No, I have not.
I think it's one of the greatest books written on Delhi.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's basically what he does is he writes lots of fiction. I think this is one of his non-fiction
I've only
books.
read good Delhi nostalgia by Khushwant Singh and like.
This is the most kind of like depraved book on Delhi you'll read maybe.
Okay.
It's really like his interaction with real industrialists in Delhi, real politicians in Delhi. And then of course he balances it by going into like the extreme outskirts of Delhi and speaking to people there and his experiences of them. And I mean, he talks to people, these guys who are, I mean, in a way, tying into what I was saying was that he makes this analogy that Delhi is kind of based like a warrior clan. You know, everyone is kind of based because there's so much business and politics.
Yeah.
There's like and all the children are kind of inculcated within the warrior clan. So you're kind of given a lot of freedom as a growing kid, and then you're kind of like pulled into this like world of industry and
it's also
and politics.
landlocked, so people are more fierce and
More fierce,
angry at outsiders.
Angry, of course, due to because this like sense of partition, etc. But and that it's so specific. His interaction with some of these guys and the stuff they do with prostitutes, the drugs, all like. I mean, the women talking about their husbands, and sometimes you can tell like who he's talking about, like based on the like based on the industry or like based on like how many brothers they have or who's running it.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting understanding of Delhi.
Yeah. I recently went to this place called Miso Sexy with a bunch of friends in Mehrauli. Mehrauli just अब नया hub बन गया ना.
I'm so out of Delhi. I don't.
So I mean, the point is like Mehrauli has become this new place for clubs. All the great clubs, Dear Donna, Boca Boca, Diablo, यही सब जो नाम होते हैं, ये सब उधर हैं. तो वहाँ Miso Sexy is one of those like retro bars, rooftop पे बैठ सकते हो, आसपास वो आग जली होती है, वो बड़े-बड़े ऐसे सोफे होते हैं बीच में, फिर वो drinks आती हैं, all that jazz. So I haven't been to this place. I go there with a bunch of friends, and then the music shifts from normal drum and bass to good deep house, and then the kind of deep house that everyone knows. वो बोलते हैं कि bro तूने Ben Boomer सुना है उस तरह का जो mainstream deep house होता है, जब सबको आ गया दिल्ली में. After the era of Sunburn coming around, like everyone knows कि here are 5 European artists I must know to look cool. That kind of deep house is playing. And मैं सामने देखता हूँ, there's these 2 dudes like 40 plus, and they're with an escort, and she's gorgeous. So what they're doing is they have their phones out, and as the song is playing, they're insisting that she dance. And they're filming her with a smug smile, ऐसे करके. And I can't stop laughing. मुझे लगता है अच्छा तुम्हारी बीवी को पता ही तुम ये सब कांड कर रहे हो. Like in my head, I always saw that on the screen in literature. अब मेरे सामने हो रहा है, मेरी हंसी छूटनी बंद नहीं हो रही कि वो कभी तो वो ऐसे नाचे, कभी वो वैसे नाचे. And they're happy, they're very content with themselves कि भाई हमने कर दिया ये. And it's just like if you hang out long enough in the city, you can eavesdrop on so much shit happening.
Yeah, exactly.
That you would never you would never imagine until you went to these places where these things happen.
Yeah. I mean, I was in Bangkok a few months ago with Sanya, my wife, and we do everything together anyway. So we ended up in one of these strip clubs together, just to hang out, whatever. And then we just see all these, like you can tell, there's all these uncles from Delhi, man. And they are getting so freaked out that we are there as like a couple, as an Indian couple in a place like that.
Unheard of,
I guess, for them.
It's supposed to be like sausages only.
Only for, sausages and beer bellies, basically. And balding dudes. But yeah, they were like so freaked out that they kept trying to turn away. And you could tell it was so palpable, that energy, that you just want to kind of keep away from it, so it's kind of funny, it kind of goes across like...
I mean, the Bangkok trip abroad is a very stereotypical thing that people actually do, right? Like, how to escape from marriages. तो चलो Bangkok की trip जा रहे हैं, फिर वो झूठ बोलते हैं, नहीं मैं अहमदाबाद में जा रहा हूँ प्लास्टिक मैन्युफैक्चरर से मिलने के लिए, लेकिन पहुँच जाते हैं Bangkok.
But I was damn impressed by Bangkok this time I went. I think they've really kind of had an overhaul during COVID.
What do they do? I mean, all I see lots of reels, bro. It's just like guys identifying ladyboys. That's what they do.
And that's fun also, I guess, for whoever's doing it. But I think overall, there's like been an overhaul in the sense that there's the young people are reclaiming the city. Mm-hmm. The city is also like cooler bars there. Lots of like stuff happening in terms of not just like also the sex industry is completely like streamlined now.
Yeah.
Like there's proper entry points, you know, like it's all kind of industrialized in that sense. So
It's not the wild west of crazy.
no,
things
and they're selling
anymore,
weed on the street now. It's legalized, and
Acha, they did that.
yeah, they did that just when we got there.
I would never assume that Bangkok could take such a step, you know, because gambling and alcohol are almost antithetical to, you know, like getting high.
Yeah, I think they wanted I think the COVID hit them so hard they want to recover the economy a little bit. But you know, I was like, but like other stuff still happens. Like, you know, we went to, and the weird thing is, so I mean, I don't know, you want to hear, you can cut it out, my story about.
तो पहले सुनते तो हैं.
No, I don't know if it has to be part of the podcast or not.
नहीं, go ahead.
Anything,
bro, no stress, हाँ.
ठीक है. So dude, I end up in Bangkok, and usually what happens is you'll always hear of some other guy from Delhi or some friend or Bombay or who happens to be in the city while you're there. And I've only been once before, like for an overnight thing during a layover or something. So this is like we were really craving, both of us, a bit of a Southeast Asian getaway, especially live in Goa, just getaway to a bit of a city like that. And anyway, so I meet this friend of mine. We meet at this bar. And then, you know, I was like, hey, man, I want to go to like the Pat Pong, man, you know, which is where they do the ping pong shows.
What's that?
A ping pong show. You never heard of it?
No.
Basically, it's interesting because it used to happen back in the day where strippers would get on stage and they would shoot ping pongs out of their pussies.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They must have immaculate muscle control.
Mad. It's really like... It's I don't even know how to describe it. It's like you'll never see anything like that in your life.
And so they also catch it back, or like what's...
No, they do lots of other stuff. They're like, hey, what's your name and all? They do calligraphy with a pen up there. And
damn, bro.
And they can shoot darts with a balloon.
Some vagina artists out there, huh?
Yeah, but now the weird thing is like, I mean, we didn't jumping a little bit, but we went that day, it was all closed up because again it's industrialized, so by 3 AM everything was closed.
Right.
I ended up going again with Sanya like another night just to I wanted to see what it's like. And what's happened is I think it's become such a dying art in a way. Like you only see lots of really old women doing it because they're the only ones capable.
I bet Vice has already done a documentary on them.
Maybe, who knows, yeah. But they're really old, and I'm like, you know, we were a bit conflicted. I'm like, this is just like really fucking sick. But then when you see the calligraphy and the aim and all, hey man, but what if we put this in the MoMA? I'm pretty sure this would be like the greatest artistic thing, you know.
Yeah.
Because like it's a dying art. Anyway, so going back to my story, we're like, I'm gonna go to Pat Pong just to check this thing out. Pat Pong was closed.
Yeah.
And I was like, we gotta get a party going, you know, like this is like a bit dead. And so we were with a friend of mine and Sanya. They were like, oh, we just have a drink here. I'm like, but the strip club is shut down. Even there's nothing going on with the lights on. What are we going to do here?
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, we got to get something going, you know. Like I was a bit, you know, sometimes, you know, I have a bit of this thing, man, because I travel so much. I travel so much and I've had such like wild experiences. I always get this like instinctive thing that tonight just seems like something interesting is going to happen. So it doesn't seem like the end of the night or just have one beer here. And I usually follow that instinct like really like...
You like to hop to places and do a bunch of things, or do you like to create your own scene?
Neither. I just let the night go, you know, like something going to come out of this. And if I go over like the stuff I've seen in like weird cities, you will be like amazed, I think. So for this night, it was like, we didn't see the thing, so these guys want to sit around and have a drink here. I mean, there's something that you don't want me to speak about, like...
भाई कोई सीन ही नहीं है, खुल गए बैंचो और क्या? 4 बार तो मैं बैंचो बोल चुका हूँ, कोई सीन नहीं है.
नहीं, in the sense that it's getting too like indulgent in my travel stories.
नहीं bro, नहीं, ऐसा कोई सीन नहीं है. I prefer this actually, because I've had a bunch of crazy experiences traveling abroad alone. So I mean, ठीक है, हमने काफी क्राफ्ट की बात कर ली फिल्ममेकिंग की. अब बढ़िया महफिल चल रही है, चलाओ.
This is real shit. Yeah, the filmmaking is based on this. Then let me tell you 2 stories.
Okay,
because the second one also you'll find quite fascinating.
Okay.
And so anyway, so I'm like, man, this is not the end of the night. And this friend of ours, he's getting a bit impatient, being a bit conventional, saying, hey, listen, like, what's going on? And then Sanya's a bit used to this, that I get a bit of this whiff. And she's like, just calm down. I think he's going to do something interesting. So I go to the manager of this strip club and I'm like, hey, listen, there's got to be some place in Bangkok open right now. Please, I pester her. She's like, oh man, this guy's really after me. She's like, okay, follow me. She takes me around the back and she introduced me to this guy who's like 6'3". I'm 6 foot. And he's really big, and he's a cyclops. Like his one eye is dead, so he has one eye.
Fuck.
And I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna get beaten up tonight, man. But he is quite sweet and nice. He takes me to this other guy, who's basically like a carbon copy of Mr. Miyagi, like in the same suit, and he's like, okay, you guys want party, follow me, okay. I was like, okay, let's do it. So I call these two, I say, hey, follow this guy, and now he makes us walk like for almost a kilometer. So we're just walking, following this guy randomly. He speaks maybe 5 words of English. These guys are already freaking out, like, fuck man, my kidneys gonna go missing. I'm like, no, fuck it. Even that's a good story, yeah. So just chase the story, you know. We go down, we walk through like back alleys, dingy alleys, down this like kind of old office lane of like old offices, through the back of this really soundproof door. Enter this banging party, man, with just Thai people, and the 3 of us, and it's like everything under the sun imaginable. Every drug possible. There's like a ongoing strip show, which is not something I'm like craving, but in a sense like just being there,
all in one
being
deal
part of these guys, and then they were just so amused that there's these 3 Indian people here. They were very welcome. Everyone was like, yeah, let's hang out with these guys.
It's like you've discovered the locals hangout.
That's what I like to do, like a local hangout, you know. And I've had that a lot. Like, you know, I had this in Zurich. Ended up in like a drug den run by a Punjabi guy.
What?
Yeah, man. Like, I was in Zurich at a film festival. That's another thing, because these lots of these.
उसने German master करके डॉन बन गया वो.
भाई तो ये सुन. You know, because I used to go to because these film festivals invite me so much, I ended up traveling so much, right? And this has happened. Like I've been in Paris in a bar closed down myself with unknown people, drugs being brought in by cops who are friends and just distributing them within the people, like stuff like that.
What the fuck?
Yeah, dude, this Zurich story is damn interesting, because I'm at this film festival. I meet this Syrian friend of mine. He's a filmmaker, a German friend, and they all want to score some weed. So I was like, okay, fuck it, I'll just walk with you guys. They got this weird address or this pinpoint, like a location, saying, go here, you'll find it. Don't find it. It's quite a sterile town anyway. So they're like, okay, let's walk, let's see where else we can find something. While walking down this, by this canal, I think I see 2 people in the corner somewhere. I'm like, those guys are definitely smoking a joint. We should go and ask them. And they were. Then these guys are like, so then we like, okay, but where can we get something, man? You just tell us. So they were very polite. They said, you just walk across the canal, go down, give us some directions. Go to the end of the bar and just say, I want to go on top to the first floor. I was like, okay. We get to this bar. It's like flooded, like with half a foot of water. It's empty.
What?
It's like old, it's like the most like non-Swiss place possible. There's one lady in the back bartending. We're like, we want to go to the first floor. She's like, okay, she's like, you can go. Those 2, the other girls can't go. I was like, what? And she's like, you guys have to buy a drink and go. I was like, okay, fuck it, get a drink. And she takes us this like narrow like stairway, creaky fucking like old school stairway. We opened the door into like just pretty much a room of haze, like smoke. Okay. And this Syrian friend of mine, Syrian German, he's just going on saying, where's the weed? Because that's like, and there's like a bit of an American high school thing going on here. And anyway, they point us to the back, and I meet this big guy sitting there talking in a thick British accent, you know. And I said, this guy looks a bit brown, but nowadays you can't really tell, right? Then I saw Kada on his hand. I was like, are you Punjabi? He's like, yeah, man. And he broke into this like full like British Punjabi with me. I was like, yeah, I'm also Punjabi. And in a nutshell, and there was like pretty much, it wasn't just weed, it was like pretty much everything going on there, okay? And he's like, he was like willing to give it for free now because I was a Punjabi now. Okay? Like, here's my number, come and stay in my house and all, okay?
Yeah, bro, regionalism is deeper than anything else.
But he was like, he had a really nice suit on and this and that. And he's like, hey, so basically what happened was, I'm a banker.
Okay.
But I got so sick of hanging out with like all my banking friends smoking cigars, I started this thing on the side. And he's telling me all this in Punjabi.
That's
while
hilarious.
I'm sitting in Zurich with all these other people around me.
What the hell, bro?
I don't know. It was wild. I mean, but it's so interesting. I think what you're saying earlier was that, you know, it's just travel, just going with the flow and letting like things happen.
Yeah.
Somehow, I don't have to make a film about this, but I think that's the thing about being an artist. I think I realized later in my 20s, early 30s that, you know, it's like, you know, initially I used to be really obsessed with like films and filmmakers.
Right.
And then at some point I started really getting interested in the lives of their personal lives, like how they lived.
Right, like what do you do outside of the camera that makes the camera stuff worthwhile?
Exactly,
Yeah.
because all that stuff finds a way into it, into the this life you live finds a way into the work, I think, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, just मेरे perspective के अंदर ना मैंने देखा है, all my peers are just like, अब creator है, YouTuber है, तो वो YouTuber के साथ ही hang out कर रहा है, just doing YouTube stuff. Eventually, what happens is your experiences become so sterile.
Exactly.
And they're just like, you don't do anything risky. You know, you don't like you see a dingy narrow alleyway जहाँ कुछ बढ़िया चल रहा है scene, पर तो बोलते नहीं यार मेरे जैसा conventional इंसान थोड़ी जाएगा, मेरा तो ये scene है. And then you lose out on whatever like propelled you to start this. Like I spent basically from 16 to 23 just going to the places I should not be at, where I could potentially be killed, shot, dangerous men, dangerous women, गलत काम चल रहे हैं. But I'm so glad for it because, you know, I've, you know, lived that life and I still continue to live that life.
Totally.
Irrespective of whatever you do. You know, you want me to show up somewhere and do X, Y, Z, I will do that. But allow me to...
I mean, think about this guy. He's a banker.
Yeah.
His life must be like, he's not even an artist.
Yeah.
He's living a more interesting life than I am, you know. Having rejected the system in my own kind of rebellious way, he's like kind of mastered that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think I feel the same way. Like sometimes I get quite saturated by like the talk of filmmakers and film directors. I'm like I like to stay away actually quite a bit, you know.
Because your peers will only talk about the same things. कि क्या करा, कैसे करा, फिर अच्छा यार नहीं 9 बज गए मुझे घर जाना है. There is nothing wrong with like living a responsible life, but sometimes you know you will find something serendipitously. Like बड़ी recently एक ऐसा scene हुआ.
बताओ, I want to hear your experiences, man.
No, bro, I've had too many experiences that I really can't share because they're like fucking weird. Also because I want to save my face. But
I was confessed is like really bad.
नहीं, I will tell you one story. So ये कहानी है one for one bro. हाँ बिल्कुल मैं so I went to this place called My Bar CP. Like
I've heard of it, man.
Yeah.
My Bar is the one you got cheap beer, cheap booze, no?
Cheap booze.
Yeah.
It's a place stuck in 2008.
Like, of course, this was the place we used to go to in a way.
And CP के अंदर तो Rajat Kapoor sir was doing a play. What's done is done. He invited me, so I went with my comedy creative friend कि चल यार तू थोड़ा ऐसे enthusiast सा लगता है, चल देख के आते हैं play देख लिया, अब हम क्या करें? So my usual response is like I always search bars near me, never like restaurants or something. I just always search bar near me. और वो CP की सारी 3.8 स्टार वाली 3 स्टार वाली घटिया बारें आनी शुरू हो जाती हैं. So I go there, I was like ठीक है कोई सीन नहीं है. Then I go to one place and this almost about to enter it. It says cocktails outside. This place is called Cheeto. This fat bouncer dude is standing outside. He's like, can I help you? It's like हम अंदर जा रहे हैं. मतलब ऐसे बोला नहीं यार stag entry नहीं है. Disbelief में यहाँ नहीं है तो क्या गेट कीप कर रहे हो बहनचोद कौन सा relic छुपा रहे हो अंदर? And I just laughed at his face and kept walking. He was in disbelief कि ऐसा कैसे हो गया? Anyway, I end up in My Bar CP and I like see these like country party वाले जो बच्चे होते हैं ना, we've got this big break lying at home कि आज हम you know कहीं night stay कर रहे हैं और वो बार के गंदे वाले फ्लोर पे जहाँ पे स्टेल यूरिया है थोड़ी बहन जो बदबू है उसके अंदर वो नाच रहे हैं सारे के सारे और आसपास सब बूथ्स के अंदर हवसी अंकल बैठे हुए हैं जिनका वो डेली का काम है वहाँ बैठ के पीना क्योंकि दारू सस्ती है और वो सब हवस की निगाहों से उनको देख रहे हैं और लड़कियों को देख रहे हैं कि हमारा नंबर भी आ सकता है. सो जस्ट ऑल ऑफ दीज पीपल डांसिंग गोइंग क्रेजी और वो बदबू पेशाब की और स्वेट की बदबू है और सारे हवसी अंकल देख रहे हैं. यहाँ मैं और मेरा दोस्त बैठे हैं और वेटर भी ना ऐसे पुराने ज़माने के जो बदतमीजी से बात करते हैं. ठीक है तो हमसे बात कर रहे हैं. लाइक ब्रो आई एम ग्लैड आई केम हियर नॉट टू सम लाइक प्लेस इन खान मार्केट और साउथ एक्स वेयर यू वुड गेट लाइक अ फैंसी कॉकटेल. एंड एज द नाइट गोज ऑन ब्रो दिस दो लड़के डांस कर रहे होते हैं साथ में. तो there's you know when guys drink alcohol especially in frats they start touching each other. ये हो जाता है like this is
full on
है ना
इसी में मजा आता है
and they will never deny it कि नहीं bro no homo ऐसा कोई सीन नहीं है. So by the end of the dance मेरे बिल्कुल साइड में नीचे हम लोग बियर पी रहे अपनी एक बंदा ना एक बंदे के ऊपर he's riding him at this point. This is happening in full frontal view. He's riding him. दूसरे बंदे ने अपने मुंह पे एक नोट रखा हुआ है तो वो नीचे झुकता है उसके मुंह से नोट लेता है ऐसे डांस करता है.
Riding him like they fucking each other.
No. But like you know like बाहर से ऐसे but like he's नहीं bro क्या सीन है ऐसे थोड़ी हो जाएगा. So orgies happening in CP no. The smackias outside are far interesting you know.
Okay.
But they just keep at it for a few minutes, bro. Like मुंह से नोट निकालता है, उसके मुंह में डालता है, फिर वो नीचे ऐसे करता है, फिर वो उसके मुंह में नोट डालता है, and no one's batting an eye. And like these guys are just like full on. Like I'm sure by the end, like they did some wacky stuff. Anyway,
no, but you're right. I think that's kind of a part of a culture always. Yeah, like I feel like in a way this westernized concept of being homophobic or homosexuality is, of course, I think it's a boon to everybody like who's dealing with their sexuality. But in our local culture, in this kind of non-English speaking world, I think that it's kind of made people a little bit more aware of it and a bit skeptical. Not skeptical, but like they want to distance themselves from it. That natural kind of like man-to-man touching kind of is like now becoming a bit like, hey, but this is not.
Yeah, there's
becoming wary of it.
There's a clip that went viral during the pandemic on TikTok when TikTok was still around. एक व्लॉगर जाता है बस्तियों के अंदर खाना वाना बांटने के लिए, वो गलती से टेंट की टारपोलिन ऊपर कर देता है और 3 बंदे एक साथ कर रहे हैं एंड तो और वो ना मतलब ऐसे एक इट्स जस्ट लाइक अ सैंडविच देयर स्टैक्ड on top of each other. The spokesperson is in the middle, so he's getting it from the back but also fucking the guy down there. So to really speak and say ki mat kariye, he has to essentially de-insert it from the ass and then also de-insert it from the guy is fucking. Both the guys, नीचे वाला ऊपर वाला दोनों हंस रहे हैं कि हम पकड़े गए. तो the middle guy is, because he's the oldest, like he's angry at this guy. But it takes a full minute to just get the dicks out and start saying कि बहनचोद जा यहाँ से, क्या कर रहा है बहनचोद, हम लोग ये कर रहे हैं. But it's just like it's one of those great gems that you discover on TikTok.
Those videos are just the best, yeah.
इसी वेन में एक और वीडियो, some other vlogger comes to do some सेवा in झुग्गी के अंदर. Again he opens a tarpaulin and this guy has got a plump wife and he's giving it to her and like they both look at him and just keep doing it. So then he gets embarrassed and walks out. But motherfucker still uploads the video.
Oh really?
Yeah. Fucking crazy stuff. Yeah, I don't know where to go from here.
I mean, where do you go, man? I mean, it has to get only extreme now. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. बढ़िया scene है. I mean, I certainly think what you have done on the outside is far more interesting. मतलब, I think
on the outside,
what do you do in your real life?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
outside of filmmaking, because I think it should be the other way around. I think your actual existence should fuel the work directly or indirectly. And since that I'm so interested in these themes, it would be a bit hypocritical or complacent to stay away,
Yeah. Like your private life has to be so interesting so that when you are in front of, when you're doing your bidding, कोई भी काम है, चाहे वो just like doing a podcast or shooting, you have skin in the game. मैं ये नहीं सोच सकता बैठ के कि I don't know what a rave looks like if you've never attended one.
Exactly.
Now, I can't ask कि एक काम करो bro, एक imagine करो rave. कोई भी नहीं गया है, सब लोग कोटा में बैठ के पढ़ाई करते हैं. कैसे लिखोगे rave के बारे में?
How do you know that? Or a fight. How can you shoot a fight? Like sometimes you see these fights, especially in these films.
Yeah.
I feel like seem so outlandish because half these people who make them have never been in a fight, have never been in a brawl. Where they've got their head smashed. Yeah,
for example, no one ever in a fight goes like this. The punches always comes from like this.
From like this or like like in our fight,
we
were like, this has to be as real as possible. So we actually started pulling up real fight videos in Delhi where like these guys are just going at it with like lathis or normal, just kind of pulling and pushing each other. So, which is how it usually happens and people get knocked out, I've been in a fight where someone knocked a whiskey bottle on my head, in Delhi.
Really?
Yeah. Before the fight started only.
Did you faint?
No, I was so drunk, I still wanted to go at it. Then some friends came like, what the fuck, why are you bleeding like this? And they took me to the hospital. So,
yeah, bro. Fuck. Now you're making me think of all the fights. See, what's really bad is like, even if you lose...
I'm not promoting fighting. Don't forget into fights just to become a filmmaker. I know a lot of young people listening to this.
But I remember this one time we were coming back from this friend's wedding and so my friend was sitting in the back and he was saying some shit to me. We were like all crammed in this Polo. Volkswagen की Polo गाड़ी में 6 लोग थे because who the fuck cares, you're like 17, 18, whatever, like all like smash and I remember उसने मुझे कुछ फालतू बोला because I had the tactical advantage. I'm sitting in the front, right? So I turned back and just punch his face thrice.
Really?
Once, twice, thrice. And each time it made perfect contact. मेरा ईगो ना ऐसा पहाड़ की तरह फूल गया कि तूने इसको बर्बाद कर दिया, ये खत्म है. उसके बाद वो बोलता रहा कि नहीं ब्रो यू फाइट लाइक अ गर्ल ब्रो ये अनफेयर था, तो स्क्रैच कर रहा है. पिट गया तू लेकिन it's
I've been in few fights and in all of them I've gotten the shit beaten out of me.
Eh.
I mean, firstly, they've always either been with too many people or the person's been way bigger than me.
Yeah.
But that's also enough. 2-3 fights are enough. No one get into a fight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, bro. I don't want this to be an injunction for people to come beat me up also. Because I've only been beaten up twice or thrice. But the one time I've been beaten up so badly कि मेरे को उस दिन ऐसा लगा था कि एक ईगो नहीं होना चाहिए इंसान के अंदर. Like you just get humble. Like when you get really beaten up, it's rare that you will have anger. Instead you're like,
Yeah, you're like, let it go, yeah. It's fine. No big deal.
हाँ bro, fighting is for pussies anyway. Who fights? Like जीत जाते हो, man. तेरा भाई street brawler.
Yeah.
Anyway, bro, भाई बहुत मजा आया बात करके.
I know. Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. People can follow you on क्या
I got an Instagram, so
Instagram, and then they can check out our work on Mubi, right? 2 movies
I
there.
think 2 films are there. They're there for just a little bit longer, so
Okay.
we have to see where they go next. So yeah, in the next month or so, if anyone wants to check them out, check them
and
out.
Class is always streaming on Netflix.
Class is
you
on
know?
Netflix, and I don't know. Yeah.
बढ़िया, full Moj.
Have you had other filmmakers on this ever?
Yeah, like 2-3 years ago. I had Kanu Bhel on.
Oh, really? Cool.
Kanu Bhel, but it was my older podcast. I did it over Zoom.
Yeah.
We talked about his unreleased film a lot. We talked
I
about
see.
Titli a lot. I had Rajat Kapoor sir on. But that was also like bad audio. Fucked it up completely.
No, I was asking because is there like a audience of yours that are budding filmmakers, like trying to get into films or make a film? Or
Yeah. Will you mentor them by taking them to a bar?
getting them wasted? No, I think that not that. I think just maybe leave them with the thought that if they're really interested in making films, they should just get a camera and start shooting. They'll just make something with a voice. Don't try to imitate, and try to make something that's just so unique and kick-ass that it stands out. You get an audience.
बट उससे मैं फिर इसको खत्म नहीं करना चाहूँगा. फिर एक और सवाल आ गया मेरे पास. बहुत सारे लोग बोलते हैं ब्रो हमारी वॉइस ही नहीं है, हमें तो कॉपी करनी पड़ेगी. व्हाट डू यू से टू देम?
Then don't make films, Yeah, if
Really?
you don't have a voice, if you have nothing to say, then don't say anything at all. I mean, not to borrow from the Buddha, but the Buddha became the Buddha because he felt enlightened and wanted to share something.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything to share and you feel it's not worth sharing, then don't do it. Because it's this. The reality is making films is very difficult. It's not easy. The technical know-how, whether you're doing it independently on your own, the way I am. I mean, what I've done on my own is a rarity. One person shooting as much, doing sound. Most people can't grasp it, or editing on your own, like start to end, or working in an industry scale, we're collaborating with so many different people. It's very, very difficult. Getting your stuff out is equally difficult. So, if you feel like you have nothing to say, or like film is, if you want an easy way into film, like a cushioned way into becoming a filmmaker, that does not exist. It's really about lots of hardship. Whether you live this like, whether you go to bars or not, doesn't matter much.
Yeah.
You should definitely have something to say, and then be willing to push for it. Yeah.
And then receive hate or being disliked or being looked at as weird.
Yeah, the dislike and all, you start kind of enjoying it, because it's like
Most hate it.
yeah, it's a bit like, it's a bit masochistic, but
There's a kick in being the
there's
villain.
a kick in it, I managed to piss someone off,
Yeah. As opposed to spread smiles and lighten hearts. Because
that means you had something to say, right? And
Yeah.
and it either resonated with somebody or completely like alienated somebody.
Yeah.
And either way is fine, as long as you have something to put out there.
Yeah. This is what Chuck Palahniuk says about books. He's like, a book is a very high investment medium, right? You most likely will read a book, some Paulo Coelho shit, at an airport. And still with that, you don't cause a revolution. वहाँ पे भी भैंचो वही सब की sky blue था, ये सब लिख रहे हो. मतलब
exactly.
मतलब अगर कोई आ ही गया आपके पास तो उसको कहीं लेके तो जाओ. ये थोड़ी कि जी देखो दुनिया मैंने दिखाती description है. Like where is the polarization? So I think what you've done with Class and all the other films is you're pushing the norms of what it means to be dangerous. And we have less dangerous work now. Everything's fucking watered down. कि भाई ये क्या बोलेगा, वो क्या बोलेगा.
Yeah, that's true too. I think everyone's trying to play it a bit safe.
Yeah.
Also because I think it's a bit of this echo chamber internet existence.
Yeah.
But I feel also like the cinema is around you. Like you don't have to be this edgy person like me. You don't have to be that guy. You can make something very simple. You can make something about like your parents.
Yeah.
You know, like how they're dealing with stuff also. Like, but there's cinema around you. Just try to find it. You don't have to really go very far away to find something interesting. It's just that the stuff I've made happens to be this really edgy stuff or whatever. I mean, a little bit more murky and negative, which may speak more about me than the work. But you know, like if you have a very happy existence, that's fine too. It's good to spread that happiness and joy into the world. So do that. But don't try to be something you're not, or try to go outside of the world. You know.
Yeah.
You'll really find a lot, lots of themes and characters and tropes that are cinematic within the world around you.
I mean, if I go outside, I can just see so many cats. I can make something called Cats of Bandra, just shooting cats, and that could be a thing. Yeah.
Don't do that.
But no, bro, it was a blast talking to you. And people can check out your work. And yeah, I'm happy you came.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much. This was great.
Yeah. Awesome. So, this was Dostcast with Kabir Mehta. See you all next Tuesday or Friday. Whenever the next episode comes out, don't forget to subscribe. Sayonara. Bye-bye. Take care.